glad that the brothers on the rise now. Endless celebrations all in my house. Levitating now, I'm super duper fly now. London boy, but DC where I reside now. Put the time in while you always yelling time out. And for quit it, cause I know I'm coming with it. You were sitting, you were wishing I was handling my business. Now I got the ball like Harry Potter playing Quidditch. And my business is humongous, you would think that happens in it. Oh man, I'm all that, yeah, I'm all that. Working for that whip, yeah, that what you call that. I'ma blow up in the summer, have him yelling fall back. And I've always been ahead like an effing ball cap. Man, I came in the game like, whoa. Got a couple chains on me cause I like gold. They told me I'm the best and I told them I know. Cause when I'm in your town, every ticket I sold. Yeah, they saying I'm the man. Facts, bro. Facts, lot of haters. Tell me where they at, though. I'm the new pop, all I do is rap, though. Want me on your song, throw a couple stacks, yo. Woo! Everybody wanna do the same thing. Yup. That's why we ain't on the same page. Do my own thing, and I maintain. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yeah, I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yeah. I'm going mainstream. Damn. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. So I'm going mainstream.
Welcome back to the Xbox Infinite podcast on this lovely Saturday morning or Friday evening if you're in the US. We've got a great show for you guys today. Let me just start by introducing our special guest for the day, Deli. How you doing, man? What have you been up to? What have you been playing? Deli is an ex-Ubisoft developer and current Microsoft developer in a secret army project. What have you been up to?
I've just been hanging out playing Sifu. I just got the Plat trophy for Sifu a couple days ago, and then I hit Diamond 5 in Halo Infinite. So yeah, I've just been kind of waiting for Season 2, waiting for a new rank reset. I think they said they're going to push that out next week, so I'll probably be hopping on playing next week.
Diamond 5? Wow, we're going to have to get you on our team, man. We don't play ranked very often. How was Sifu? What did you think of that?
Oh, I thought it was fun. I thought it was great. It presents the correct amount of challenge, at least for me. I didn't think it was too difficult. I didn't think it was one of those things where I had to break out the Excel spreadsheet and study all the numbers just so that I can get past a level. So I thought that it was something that I had to put a little bit of time into. I think I put about 29 hours in to get the plat. So yeah,
Cool.
I thought it was fun.
I've yet to get that. I'm going to kind of wait for that to go on special or end up in the PS Plus store. I'm hoping for it. Moving on to our next guest, Silent Cypher of the XIP podcast. How you doing, man? What have you been up to? What have you been playing? How's your week?
Good evening and good morning. My week is great. You know, honestly, we did our XBI podcast on Wednesday, and then I'm hanging out with you guys today, going into a long weekend, so I cannot complain. As far as what I'm playing, you know, I was really good at avoiding Fortnite for a long time, and my son has gotten me into playing Fortnite with him. So we've been sitting there playing. He's playing on his Switch. I'm playing on my Xbox. I know it's not exciting. It's not a new game, but we've been playing a ton of that in the household. Besides that, a little bit of Cyberpunk, but that's been about it so far. But yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. Glad that we could make it work out to all come in here, hang out. It's good times.
It's great to have you here, man. Always great to have you here. I heard you've been playing a lot of Forza, and that might be a bit of an issue.
Yeah, I haven't played as much as I should be. But rest assured, I will get at least 12 hours in this weekend.
Awesome, fantastic. Red Dead Panda, how you doing? I know you've been playing a little bit of Halo lately. How's that going for you?
It's been lots of fun. This is like my first Halo multiplayer game I've ever actually played, so I'm really enjoying Infinite. But yeah, thank you for having me on this week again, guys. I was on a few weeks ago. But also been playing some Sea of Thieves, and we were playing Back 4 Blood for a community game night last night, so maybe we might play some more of that tonight. Who knows? But yeah, my week's been really, 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 really good. Got lots of gaming in, as usually I don't because I'm so tired from work.
Right, Roger. And you are from the podcast GIP podcast, is that?
Yeah. Gamers Initiative podcast, yeah.
The Gamers Initiative podcast. That is a fire podcast, as is Silent Cypher's podcast. You guys should definitely get over there and watch that when you can. And returning every week, JediKnightPete. What have you been up to? What have you been playing? I know you've been playing Back 4 Blood. I wasn't invited. What have you been up to? How's your week been?
Well, we wanted to actually win Back 4 Blood, mate, so that's why you weren't allowed to play. But yeah, look, community game night was absolutely fantastic last night. If anyone wants to join us in the chat, we're on at 8 p.m. every Friday and Saturday. You know, Panda, Timmy, Risket, Dev, Monad. Great times. Still playing Halo. I love it, but I am waiting for something new. I cannot wait for Elden Ring. It's great to have Cypher on the show, as well as Dali. I can see the Xbox International guys are all in the chat, so thank you for showing up, guys. You know, you guys are awesome, and Xbox International is a great podcast, so check that one out, guys, because they're absolutely fantastic.
Awesome, fantastic. And moving on to our as always, panel, Umbra. Welcome back, man. How you doing? How's your week? What have you been up to?
It's so easy. No, I've been great, man. I've been good for the most part. I'm at about 88%. Just about. just 2 points. Just 2 points away from 90. I had to get this tooth removed, but I'm doing much better right now. You know, the little fevers are going away. Yeah, man, I've been playing Mafia Definitive Edition. I was just talking to Mr. Joe in the Dark in the chat about it. It's an excellent game. Again, I think it's kind of like one of those pinnacles of what remakes should be. I got 2 achievements left to get on it, so that's why I'm finishing it off on Classic to get that. I also have been playing Sifu, like Deli. I didn't, platinum it, although I'm playing it on my PC, so I couldn't. But it's a good game. It's kicking my ass, man. I went from 24 to 70 in the club at one point, and I had to, start over.
I keep hearing about this club.
Yeah, the club is infamous because even before I got to the boss, these guys were like, I don't know. They felt like final bosses to me, the way they were kicking my ass. But anyway, it's a good game. It's a decent game. But I will say I had a conversation with somebody where they reminded me that it plays kind of similar to Rise, Son of Rome. And I was like, wow, I see that now. It does. But Rise, if you all remember, did not get the love it should have got. It didn't.
No,
I agree.
absolutely.
This is a great game.
It is a great game. I think it went on a little bit too long. I don't know if I played it, finished it, but it got repetitive, I think, towards the end because there was no change up throughout the game.
But
I think it was that, but also the story does to me too. But I think because of they had it with the Kinect controls at first. It was a Kinect game at first, and they moved it to being a controller game. So that's what hurt it, the development of it. But other than that, I love the game.
Oh, it definitely needs a sequel. 110% needs a sequel. So I've been playing Guardians. And what else have I been playing? I've been playing a little bit of Sea of Thieves, which I've never played before. It's a really beautiful looking game. It's on screen now. I love my time in Sea of Thieves. I will say it's a little bit tedious going from place to place, but realistic. I like that you've got to sail your ship. Everyone's got to get involved, bring the sails down. This is me leaving our captain on the shore just for a laugh. Yeah, it's been an absolutely fantastic week. There's been a lot of news. And so let's get into the topics. We're going to start off with a topic that really hasn't been news, but something I wanted to talk about because I know that Delhi has his misgivings about Game Pass. And this week, this month, the offering in Game Pass wasn't really 110%. And the other thing that I have an issue with currently, or I'm worried about, is the quality control of Game Pass. I think that we're at a stage now in Game Pass, or Xbox is at a stage now in Game Pass, that they need to really watch what they're putting in there, not to dilute the current offering. So, for instance, Crossfire X not really being a great game. I don't think we needed another shooter in the Game Pass. And as I put it to Pete earlier in the week, I think Crossfire X needed Game Pass. Game Pass did not need Crossfire X. And I think that Xbox needs to be very careful about what they put in the future as far as third-party offerings. Delhi, your thoughts on Game Pass? I'd like to get your opinion.
Well, as a consumer, I love Game Pass. I have always been an advocate for saying that, when I was growing up playing games, right? So I'm about to turn 25 on Monday, so I'm not very old. But when I was growing up playing games, I came up from a household that could only afford one AAA game a year. So I had to be very, very selective about what game I picked, whether it be, Modern Warfare 2 or, Army of Two or this or that, X and Y. Gears was a big game that I usually bought every single time it came out. I saved for that moment. So if 12 or 14-year-old me had Game Pass, I wouldn't have to had wait. I could have just played all of these games at all times and never missed out on any of the multiplayer experiences that my friends were on. But yeah, I think Game Pass is great. But my concern as a developer, because you mentioned it earlier, but I was a former AAA game developer at Ubisoft, is that I'm concerned with where things are moving in the next 5 years. And obviously, I have to wait. A lot of these developers have to wait for the next 5 years to come in before we can kind of see the grander picture. But we've seen smaller issues crop up, like games like Crossfire X, or you mentioned it earlier, hey, this month's offering is not that great, or some people mention that, their favorite game on Game Pass just got cycled out, or this and that, or, whether or not there's 1,000 games on Game Pass or 100 games on Game Pass. It's how am I going to get time to play all of these games?
Yeah.
So there is a general concern for me, anyways, as a developer, to see where Game Pass benefits the industry as on the development side, because there's already been a rocky amount of situations on the development side, especially coming out these last couple of years with ABK, Activision, Ubisoft, EA, and a host of other issus.
So as a developer, what's your concern about Game Pass doing to the industry from the inside? Is there something or multiple issues that you see in the future, possible issues that you see in the future with services like Game Pass, Spartacus?
Yeah, I think that as a developer, when developers make games, there's always a huge issue with crunch. So when I was at Ubisoft, I had crunch for probably 6 months out of the year. I know people were complaining that hey man, can people come home at one moment in time. There was a moment that I remember very specifically. We were in the break room chilling, hanging out, and somebody was complaining that was man, I put in 80 hours this week and another employee comes in and he basically throws his hat on the floor, and he gets really, really mad because he hears like 2 or 3 people comparing hours, because we're just like, we're there, it doesn't matter. I have 80 hours, I have 88 hours. This dude was like, dude, I have 92 hours. I just want to go home and see my family. But we can't, because they pushed us, the management has pushed us into the situation where we have to push out these deadlines and we have to work consistently. So we're already getting exploited as is. So when we put games, or when we have situations where we put games on Game Pass, like let's say Crossfire X, or games that come out half-baked, like Battlefield or whatever it may be, that recently came out, if we're already crunching and we're not getting bonuses or whatever because we're crunching over salary or this and that, if the CEO or if the management team, let's say just Bungie, right? So if like the senior management team decides like, hey, let's make this big deal to put our game on Game Pass, and let's say Microsoft or whatever, or like Stadia, let's just use Stadia, Google gives us $10 million, right? Well, they give the studio $10 million to put the game on Stadia, but I don't see a dime of that. And if I don't see a dime of that, then things like, hey, if your Metacritic score gets over 85, which was something that existed for Watch Dogs Legion for us, like, hey, if Metacritic scores over 85, you guys get an extra, $5,000. Or if it sells over 20 million units, or if it sells, over 3 million units, then you guys will get an extra $5,000.
Is sales the metric though? Or I kind of see personally myself in the future that it will be player count that's going to be the metric that bonuses might be based on. And does Game Pass help crunch? I mean, if you look at developers, if you look at Microsoft as a whole, I think that Game Pass might help crunch insofar as there's enough content in Game Pass, I think now, and going into the future there will be. And if there is enough content, there's no real need to crunch to pump that game out for a specific time in the year. Can you see Game Pass helping in the future?
Yes, of course. I mean, I can definitely see, like, let's say a smaller studio, or let's say we work specifically with Microsoft, so let's just say Game Pass in general, right? So if Microsoft comes up and says, like, hey, guys, what do you guys need? And we say, oh, we need more talent. We need outside hiring. We need outsourcing for, I don't know, let's say 2,000 more contractors, because we had, on The Last of Us 2, there was over 2,000 contractors. We had several studios on the outside that weren't in my circle that helped us out. It's like Ubisoft Kiev, Montreal, Montpellier, and stuff like that. Like, hey, we need more help. We need more people. We need more bodies. And, money helps with that. An increased budget helps with that. If I come up to you and say, hey, Phil Spencer, hey, Biscuit, I need an extra $10 million in 8 months, because that's what our budget, I crunch the numbers, that's what our budget needs. And you say, okay, that's a done deal. Oh, what? Yeah, it's a done deal. Okay, well, I guess I'll just put up an ad and start hiring now. Okay, that's fine.
So that
and then
that removes the crunch though, right? The more bodies, the less crunch you'll have to do. The more hours you're putting into a game just based on the amount of bodies that you have. So there's definite positives moving forward.
Of course. But yeah, like I said, it's kind of a complex issue. That's like crunch also has to do with like management, like studio culture. It also has to do with a bunch of other things. But if we just look at it on a surface level, like money is a huge benefactor of not crunching. Time is a huge benefactor of not crunching. So again, a lot of developers will ask like, hey, can we have more time? Can we have more money? I saw an article that said Horizon Forbidden West's delay helped with crunch. Like it didn't it's allowed the studio to not have crunch because of the delay. I'm like, that's great. I wonder if they needed more help, more bodies on the situation, if they just need more time. Like, I'm not entirely sure, right? Obviously everything's a complex issue, but if it's just as simple as more bodies and more money, that is something that Game Pass, Stadia, Ubisoft Plus, whatever it may be, like these big publishers can provide, because at the end of the day, that's what they're there for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You would think EA would be able to do the same thing. Silent Cypher, Game Pass, from your point of view lately, how's the offering been going? Can you see any issues going into the future with Game Pass? Do you think that There could be some ramifications with games as a service. And when Spartacus comes in, do you think that Microsoft has the head start to basically make Spartacus irrelevant, or do you think Sony can push that service up to a point where it is a competitor for Game Pass?
So to go back what Deli was just mentioning, yes, I also would think that EA would be able to do that. It saddens me that it doesn't seem like EA seems to care on that side of things. But to go into it, yeah, no, honestly, so I'll work from the back forward. But I think it's a really good thing that Spartacus comes out and does get to the scene and starts bringing out some stuff for their fan base, right? Because the competition that'll bring, I mean, it's going to be rocky to start off, but competition's good for us as consumers in general, right? So if they have a service, because right now where they're not really going up against anyone technically, if you get that and you have someone else like that going against you and they're bringing their best cards to the table, that's going to benefit us most as consumers.
Yeah, like if I'll play into your point. Like if if my subscription services, offer 3 AAA games a month, or we, get rid of the time thing, so our library is consistent, it always will be, then it'll push your subscription service. You guys may reevaluate that and be like, you know what? We might do 5 games a month, 3 of them being AAA. So that way we have more.
Yeah, I mean, you even go back to the old days, like with games with gold versus the PlayStation Plus side of things, right? And it was one of those things of PlayStation Plus was offering stuff across PS3, Vita, and PS4, if I remember correctly.
It was a huge spread.
Yeah, and Xbox, like the count was less. And so we ended up seeing a little bit more pop in the process as they went cross-generation and stuff like that. And so we started to see more games that came into the fold in the process. And you got to imagine that's because the competition came to the table, said, hey, we're going to throw a deluge of games at you. And they're like, okay, well, what can we do to compete? So, the competition's always a good thing. I would imagine as a consumer, I like them fighting for our money, right? Because that means that we're going to get the best services in the process. As far as, the thing is like, I think we are going to run into some games that aren't always going to be the highest quality. There's going to be some filler out there. I would definitely think that Game Pass definitely, it helps, especially with how many development groups that they have now and how many teams they have. I think it helps a lot in the fact that it does reduce maybe that crunch, that possibility of crunch. Because again, it's kind of like what Dilly was mentioning, is like if you had to go in and be like, hey, we need more money, we need more time, it seems like right now is the best time for that scenario to come up, because Microsoft is very to be like, hey, you need time, we'll give you more time.
But do we need that filler? So with exactly where we're at now, in 2018 we needed the filler. That was 110%
right.
true. They had to have that filler to get the Game Pass service up and running. Obviously cheaper games, less quality games, not always, but mostly. But at this point in 2022, do we need the filler? We've already got enough in there, right?
I wouldn't call a lot of the games filler, but I mean, you can't, just because it's not AAA doesn't mean that it's filler. The thing I love about Game Pass is the amount of different genres that I've actually got to experience, and games that there's no way I would have touched unless they were on Game Pass. And finding these games is half the fun. You can go through the list and just pick a game and try it. And Cloud benefits that as well. You don't even have to download it. So I don't know if I would definitely call them filler. I think it just adds to the service. I think the problem here is more quality control than anything else.
I think if I don't know, if I'm putting on my consumer hat and I'm thinking, okay, what's the best deal that I've got, right? I look at this list of the stuff that came out or that's coming out for February, right? And there's a bunch of stuff on here that again go into that same point. I probably would have never played some of these items. Some of these games would have never had my attention, probably because of how many games come out in a regular cycle. But I look at some of this, I'm like, okay, lawn mowing simulator. I probably wouldn't have given it a chance in the past, but guess what? I'm going to jump into it. I'm going to see what it's all about. And it turns out that when I play it, I feel like a middle-aged dad that's roaming around in his suburban yard mowing the lawn. And it makes me feel at home because that's very close to home. But you look at other stuff like Super Mega Baseball, Alice Madness Returns, stuff like that. Like I wouldn't say it's bad filler. Like Mass Effect Legendary Edition, it's good. And as a consumer, if I see stuff like this, if you're not telling me that you're going to raise the price and I've got that filler in there, then I'm not going to be as upset. You're telling me $15, I'm getting the same stuff, and every now and then there's something I don't like. I don't see that as a problem. Like, again, not every game is going to be for me. Some people might be really, really into some of these games like Skull, Hero Slayer, or something like that, and maybe it's not something for me.
Boyfriend Dungeon. I heard you like that one,
Yes,
Cypher.
boyfriend. Yes, I hear Miles liked that one too. So it's not just me. But no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, right? Like Crossfire, especially when we were going into that situation and the launch on that thing, I had cold feet. I was like, ooh, based on what we're hearing, I'm a little nervous about putting money on this. But it's in Game Pass, so I'll give it a shot. Why not?
And it turned out. How did it turn out for you? What did you think of it?
It was not amazing. But that being said, as a consumer, again, I would go at, okay, well, they saved me spending that money and regretting that I wasted that money. And I know some people love it, but it's not for me.
You know, I found it interesting that you mentioned Lawnmower Simulator. A good friend of the show, Acer, did a stream on his Twitch with Lawnmower Simulator, and it just it really didn't speak to me as a game that I would enjoy.
Risk it. I would say it's just like playing golf, right? If you're watching golf, it's not going to work out. If you're playing it, it might be better. So if you're playing Lawnmower Simulator, maybe it'll resonate more. Maybe.
I'll give it a go.
Stimulation out of it, yeah.
I'll give it a go. Moving on, Red Dead Panda. What are your thoughts on Game Pass? Do you think that it could be damaging to Game Pass if they start carrying too much fat? So too many shooters, too many RPGs. Do you think that there is a limit? Do you think that there's that too much could be a problem? Or do you think that...
Is this the conversation we're having now? Is too much content a problem now? Because before it wasn't enough content is a problem. So
yeah.
we
Well
can't
said,
win
Panda.
either way. We can't win either
Well
way.
said.
Like, too much of a good thing isn't a bad thing.
I think overall, I'm kind of right. I think I do agree around like we didn't necessarily need Crossfire X. I think it needed us to find a market over here on the western side. So western east. Oh my god, I have no idea anymore.
West, yeah, in
Too
the west.
confusing. But I think the point around this is I do agree quality control really needs to be an important thing. Like games can release and come out on Game Pass at any time. If they had released Crossfire X as a preview game saying it's in progress, like actually made it that way, I think it would have been a bit more palatable, because there are just consumers that are just going to scream and they're really loud and they're going to kind of paint it in a very negative light, and the casual gamers are going to pick up on that. And then they're going to go, hey, maybe Game Pass isn't as great as all these Xbox gamers and PC gamers who use it are saying, because it just takes one title for people to kind of change their opinion on something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Cyberpunk. They were like kings after
Witcher 3.
The Witcher
Witcher
3.
3.
Yeah, after The Witcher 3. And after Cyberpunk, people are still deciding, is it even worth going back and playing the game with the next gen patch or not, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But like, that's just one game, and that's sort of like, if people get a sour taste in their mouth around Game Pass, they might go, oh, maybe not. But again, I think content-wise, Netflix has a lot of bloat in it. And I think Game Pass needs bloat, but I think also Game Pass is there for indie developers to find a place, to find a home for their games, to find an audience, and then they can focus on bringing more games.
Absolutely. But Mike, that kind of feeds into the question that I'm asking: is that if there's too much fat, too much bloat, in Game Pass, those indie developers that could find an audience and find a viewership, will they get overlooked with all the fat?
No, I don't think so, because indie games aren't usually long games, and I think if you're wanting a bit of downtime from something, I have played so many indie games I've never played before, and I used to just basically sit and play the big heavy hitter games. But when you're kind of sick of that and you want to try something new, or you're sick of the same like Assassin's Creed continuous like open world style genre game, and you're like, is there anything else I can find? Because I find like indie games are little gems. They really push the market around game development for new ideas and so on and so forth. Like PUBG, when that started and then turned into what it did, and then Fortnite kind of jumped on the bandwagon. Like, yeah, I think it's really important to allow these games to have a place, and whether that is Game Pass, which is a subscription service, and you play the games you want to play when you want to play them, as long as they're available at your fingertips, people are going to play them. And it's important to make sure that there is enough content, because gamers get bored easily. If they load up a game and they don't like it, they're going to jump to the next one. And as long as there's a constant flow of games, it doesn't matter how many games are in there. It's just going to keep bringing new subscribers to the service. But again, we have to make sure that we don't have a sour taste in our mouth from a bad title going, oh, maybe Game Pass isn't that great.
Yeah, especially for the casuals that do follow those very loud people on Twitter. Umbra, do you...
Just going on that, co-founder of indie game studio Neon Doctrine has come out, Ian Garner has come out and said how much he loves Game Pass, how much that Game Pass helped his game, and he's not the only one. There's been numerous indie developers that have come out in praising Game Pass, saying that their game has been found by so many more people because of Game Pass. So I don't believe that Game Pass hurts in that way. Now, in the future, it could hurt in other ways, but as it stands right now, I think there's only positives.
We were talking about Rise Son of Rome earlier, I think before the show. Imagine if that had launched on Game Pass. I don't think it would have got the reception that it did get at the beginning of the Xbox One generation. I think that we probably would have definitely got a sequel as a result, and I really want them to push that as a sequel, because I love that game so much. And it really needs to take it to the next level in the sequel.
Well said.
Definitely agreed. As far as my thoughts on it, I think you all hit really good points, and Panda, I agree with you 100% on, well, all of you all. As far as a lot of games and genres you've tried, thanks to Game Pass, I've definitely fallen into that as well. There's been some games that I would never have touched. I mean, I'm not the biggest turn-based RPG fan, but I've played things because of that, strategy games that I've played through it because of Game Pass, and so it's definitely rewarding in the aspect. I think, to Panda's point, where you have to have this quality control, there's no way in the world that Crossfire should have been greenlit beforehand, or if it was, that they just went silent all of a sudden on it. I mean, we see that, everybody sees that. And the lack of marketing for it and things of that nature, it's pretty obvious you had no real confidence in it. And that doesn't speak well to the service, unfortunately. But the service itself, despite what some, of our stable members on the other side might try to tell you, is a quality service. I mean, we have much more good and great games on the service than anything else. They'll often go and chime in with Game Pass filler or Game Pass quality. That's just not true. It's something they want to say because it's not on PlayStation. But they do have to be careful in guarding Game Pass, because I know that, to be fair, to throw this out there, that deal struck with Smilegate and for this first person shooter was done way back when they didn't have everything mapped out the way they do. So they've gotten much more funding from Microsoft since then, to be fair, and now they have more quality because of that as well. So more quality titles on their service, to be fair. But it just doesn't speak well if you release this way, knowing that it was, shoddy and not fully finished, rather, or that it just doesn't play and feel well. Like, if we're seeing that, they have to see it as well. And it seems like a random cash grab from not only Smilegate, but from, what's their name? Remedy, because of it, unfortunately. So hopefully going forward, they'll be better with the quality control aspect. And like Panda said, I think I agree 100%. That should have been released in like a
Preview.
you know, as a preview game. It's much like Grum, and my buddy Grum in the chat has pointed out. He loved Second Extinction and Grounded too. Second Extinction, I think, is one of those games where if you play it because of it being a Game Pass, it's not that bad of a game. It's not the greatest game, but if you play that and you get to essentially play it free, and I do that with quotation marks, you'll have a much easier time digesting that than paying for it. Absolutely. So I agree with you. They should have released it that way as well.
Yeah, and if you think about like Game Pass, if a game releases on preview, those devs are getting a steady stream of money in to make sure that they can keep updating the game, and they're gonna become better developers as a result because they're gonna learn from the community about what they want, and so
I was just gonna
so
say that
Grounded is huge, and it found a market in Game Pass and on PC as a result, and that launched in preview. Yeah.
It really allows the community to help with the development of the game, and which I think is only a good thing. The preview aspect of Xbox is great, and it's something that PlayStation doesn't have, and I really do think it's a benefit. In terms of Crossfire X, I think there's more to it than that, because, I mean, look, we know Smilegate can make a great game, and we are going to talk about Lost Ark later, but, you know, they made Lost Ark, they made Crossfire X. The differences between those games are stark. One's absolutely polished, and one is a flaming piece of you know what. So I think that Xbox allowed it to go onto the service because they want to build a community in the East. You know, they want to start pushing more Eastern developers. The market over there is absolutely massive.
Building relationships.
Yeah, so I think that has a lot to do with why that game launched on Game Pass. Unfortunately, I don't think it does Smilegate any favors, or Xbox any favors, or Game Pass any favors for that matter. But I think there's more to it than I mean that they must have known the state of that game when they launched it. So it just suggests to me that there's more to this story that we don't know.
Oh, breaking news. This is not a real breaking news, but there was a meeting and they blamed Halo for why Crossfire X did so bad.
Absolutely. I was just literally getting onto that. There was what they called a town hall meeting. I've just realised that I haven't actually had it in the topics because I got too excited to type it in. But yeah, Battlefield, I can't remember the name of the lady, basically blamed the release of Halo for Battlefield 2042's failure. And there was a lot more in the article and in that meeting that they discussed. But one of the things, out of all the things that they blamed COVID, they blamed the release of Halo. They also made it very clear that there was, in quotation marks, an acceptable amount of bugs to release the game and then to continue repairing the game as it was released, which says to me that EA is quite happy to release a broken game to the community that you have to pay for. This is not even in a service like Game Pass or games as a service, and then repair it on the fly. To me, that's, as a consumer, that's unacceptable. That's like going to the bike shop and buying a bike with only one wheel and you got to get the other one in a couple of months. I want the bike with the two wheels that goes when I want it to go. This is absolutely crazy that this has become an acceptable thing to do within the community, to release games into the community that are broken. Who wants to buy a broken product? You don't go and buy a blender that doesn't have any blades. Look, I would love to say that EA would learn from this, but I mean, if you go back to the release of Battlefield 4, that was an absolute mess. It's now renowned as one of the best Battlefields that's ever released. But if you were a Battlefield player and you were there on day one, it was a complete and utter total mess. And we thought that they had learnt their lesson when they released Battlefield 1, because that released with minimal bugs and ready to go. Whatever you thought of the game was not broken. It ran well. It was optimized for PC. It ran well on the Xbox One. It ran well on the PlayStation 4. And now we've gone back to this Battlefield 5, then released not in quite as good a state as Battlefield 1, but in not a bad state. And now we've just completely gone back to Battlefield 4 days with 2042. And it seems like they are happy to do that. That is a business practice. Delhi, as a developer in the back end of these development rooms, look, do you guys as developers, you would obviously know when a game's broken and you would voice your concerns, I'm sure, in meetings. Does that happen?
Oh yeah, of course, all the time. Like we had a super funny story. Like up till E3, so like our E3 demo of Watch Dogs Legion, like it was not working the week before. So a bunch of us just got into a room and tried to make it work. And we eventually got it to a point where it could work. But like we know very well, like if I come into work and I look up on the board, or I have a meeting, or we're holding a meeting, and we look up on the board and we see like, hey, we have 40,000 bugs. Let's get to it. We got 6 months. And we're like, what? Like we know to a certain extent how many bugs we have. So yeah, I think it's asinine that EA would look at that and be like, okay, how's that our problem? It's like, it's kind of the entire studio's problem. And EA is like, but it's not our problem. Because at the end of the day, their stocks are doing great. I mean, in the last 6 months, it's only went down to like $11. So, I mean, for the amount of public outcry and bashing that they've had, $11 in stock. I mean, we've seen Activision go down much worse, which, to be granted, Activision stock has different factors to that. But it seems to me that EA is more invested into its investors and less into its developers and obviously the community itself.
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Jordan Dark asked a question. Do you think EA blaming Halo will make EA align or look to partner with Sony for Battlefield? I don't think so. But
I think she just spoke out of frustration. I'm going to be honest with you. I think the actual statement was that one of the factors was the surprise launch of Halo, which, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I'm not really buying it, obviously, but in PR speak, like, that would technically be a factor since it would be colliding windows, but
look, that is PR speak. I agree, Dally. But look, Battlefield goes up against Call of Duty every single year. Every single year. They go up against the biggest game in gaming for the last 10 years. So to call out Halo like that, I think is a joke. I think it was more of a statement to the investors, like you said, than it was to the community. They have no one to blame but themselves. They launched a beta. I mean, I think betas have become absolutely irrelevant. And basically what they are is for people to pre-order to get access to the beta more than anything else. And I think that is really, really disappointing. I mean, after the feedback they got from the beta, they must have known how broken this game was. They could have delayed it. But this absolute insistence to launch in this holiday window is just becoming an absolute joke. And yes, I get all the problems that COVID would have caused. But look, the community was crying out for a Battlefield game. It was the second biggest launch of a Battlefield title. It sold 4.2 million copies in the first week. Everyone was so hyped for this game after the trailer, after the mess that they and the pushback they got from the community for Battlefield 5. Everybody was eager and willing to forgive them for not having a campaign in Battlefield 2042 because they just wanted that Battlefield moment, the moments that they showed in the trailer, and it was just such a massive disappointment. And that's two in a row now. That's two in a row now for Battlefield, and if they're not careful, they're going to lose their community.
Well, that's exactly. They've lost me, and I was a massive Battlefield player all the way from the days of even on the original Xbox. I think it was Battlefield 2 I was playing, and then I moved all the way through the Xbox 360, barely playing anything else but Battlefield, into the Xbox One playing Battlefield, and they've lost me. That's. I will not go back, and mainly because of EA's business practices. Nowhere in that conversation, that meeting that they had, were the execs blamed for not giving the devs the time they needed to complete the game. And this is the problem that the industry has. And I'm tired of getting broken games. And I'm a hardcore gamer. We're all hardcore gamers here. But imagine being a casual and you've not even seen the news. You haven't been reading up on things, but you know that there's a Battlefield coming and you get that on day one. And that's the product you get. That's just, I don't think that there's many titles they can release in that way that they can come back from, because people just won't trust them anymore. Panda,
You know what it is?
yeah,
Wiz?
like Ellie
It's
said,
also the fact that it feels like it's a lack of accountability. So that's the biggest thing. If they can sit there and accept accountability and say, "Hey, we messed up here," blame that on Halo is foolish. At least to let that get out to the public is foolish. It's just going to make you look weak in comparison. I mean, I'll say this much. I don't want to doom and gloom it, because we know they moved Vince Zampella over there. So they're going to make moves. They're probably going to have it be free to play next time it comes out. I think it'll be okay. But I can understand if people like yourself, long-standing fans, are like, nah, after 5 and then this. I can see if people are like, nah, I'm going to move on. So, but it's a lack of accountability to blame it on something else that makes them look, weak and, unaccountable, honestly.
Like Dally said earlier, he was only able to buy one game a year, and my family was like that too. And there are still families that will only buy one AAA game a year. Imagine Battlefield 2042 was that game for you. You would be so disappointed. And it's just not good enough. It's not good enough.
Offering free refunds yet at this point, are they? But there's that petition that went.
there's a 300,000 person signed petition to offer refunds. Panda.
I think you're right about the accountability there, Umbra. It definitely needs to be there. I mean, coming from just watching what Xbox has done, and I know this is just continuously, but like the 360 with the red ring of death, they took that on and they said, yes, we made a faulty product. You can return it, and we will give you a replacement. And it was like a $1 billion loss for them, or over $1 billion that they lost, to make up for the massive cock up that they did. And same with like coming out and talking about the mistakes that they made on the Xbox One generation, like building, having that accountability and getting that mindset and making sure that your community knows you mucked up, like really, really stuffed up, and kind of recognizing that and going, we're going to do better. We're going to offer refunds until it's fixed. Oh, we might put this into Game Pass right now, so it's free to play for you guys. So they really need to do something.
It's a step towards forgiveness, admitting that you've done the wrong thing. Yeah.
They really need to get some buyback into the community, because right now they just look so out of touch. Like that conversation where they're talking about blaming Halo because Halo was more polished. Yes, obviously it was really aimed at Halo. I think they were just kind of comparatively comparing the two. But like, you had so much feedback. Initial reviews said people were enjoying it and it felt like Battlefield, because it did feel like Battlefield. However, you've got to have that polish. We're talking about like Crossfire X in the last conversation to do with quality control. Quality control is becoming an apparent issue in the gaming industry now, because they're so focused on pushing out games and making money that they don't care about whether or not the people who are playing the games have a good experience. Consumers want to have a good experience. Consumers want to go and play your games every single day. I mean, Dally, you were talking about being in a household where you had to like save up and get like one, like could maybe only afford 3 AAA games throughout the year. Like, that is the casual gamer sometimes. They can't afford to just spend money on a broken game and then find out they can't even get a refund.
Yeah, exactly. Grub in the chat said my cousin brought a PS5. He only brought COD Cold War and Battlefield 2042. He's now playing Game Pass on his laptop because he doesn't want to buy more than one game every 3 to 4 months. Yeah,
that's the point.
I think people need to stop pre-ordering games. We really do. These people are putting out these great trailers that get the fans hyped up, and people will pre-order them, and then it's generally a letdown. So I think if we can get that word out to the community to just stop pre-ordering, wait till those reviews come out, wait till you know that the game's sort of broken, buggy mess, then give them your hard-earned money.
Well, start listening to the hardcore gamers as well in that regard, because I was one of the ones screaming from the top of the roofs that this game cannot, will not, and can't be fixed in time for its launch. I knew it couldn't, I cancelled my pre-order. I had a pre-order. I actually made a video and cancelled my pre-order in the video. But like, it was known, and EA knew, the hardcore community knew, and they pulled the wool over the casuals' eyes.
Yeah.
Frostbite
You know what's
engine
worse
has been
about that?
18 months updating the Frostbite engine for this game, and they should have delayed it. I mean, Halo, that massive title, delayed a year. And
Exactly.
we needed a bit more of a delay to allow crossplay and other stuff in it. But, I mean, it released in at least a polished state in comparison to Battlefield. And out of the two, like, COD was a bit buggy, but out of the two, COD and Battlefield, COD won out, obviously. It's got that huge fan base, but it did itself, it did massive disservice by releasing it.
Just to throw it out there too, I think Cyberpunk 2077 should have been a real obvious, like, forewarning to any company.
Yep.
People had to see what happened with that. So how would you see what happened with them and the backlash they got after having such a monumental game of the generation in Witcher 3 to Cyberpunk, and people turning on them, that you said, we're going to do that too. We're going to push out a game instead of giving them the time. It just doesn't make sense.
I think these companies are falling into that definition of insanity, doing the same thing again and again without ever learning from it. Like, that's the definition of insanity.
And expecting a different result. That's, and they're not going to get one. No.
They're not getting one. Like, learn from what's happening in the rest of the industry. Yeah.
I think it was Delhi. Who said their stock price went down $11.
$11, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much telling of how the executives think. $11, we can take that on the chin. But how many $11 stock drops can you actually handle? Silent Cypher, are you tired of seeing these? I mean, I know you are. You can't ask a gamer, are they tired of seeing these broken games come out and expect an answer other than yes. But how do you feel about the way Battlefield 2042 is released and is handling their poor release?
So to go back to what Umbra was just mentioning too, it's kind of funny because you would have figured that they would have learned the lesson, said, okay, lesson learned. These guys took the firing squad for us. So let's go ahead and maybe pull back a little bit, make sure this thing's fully baked before we send it out. But it almost felt like their approach instead was, hey, Cyberpunk stepped in it really hard. So even if we put ours out and it's not great, it can't be as bad as the situation they had. So maybe we'll fly under the radar. That's almost how it felt. Is like, you look at that with Call of Duty too. Is like both of them when they came out, it's like, okay, there's issues everywhere. But it was like, each one was hoping like maybe the other person messed it up bad enough that we won't get the heat for it. But yeah, no, I mean, as a consumer, obviously, like it's infuriating. I'd say especially nowadays with like the download caps, with the issues that we have with internet service, and being forced to pay more if we're going to download more stuff. Like if I download Cyberpunk or Battlefield or something like that, and it's a major download, I get into the game, it freezes, it dies on me right off the bat. Personally, I'm frustrated even just in that situation, because it's like, okay, I just wasted X amount of gigs that I could have downloaded for the month, and it turns out that this game's completely broken, it's unplayable, stuff like that. I'd say that's the one that bothers me more nowadays, honestly, than even the money on it, because usually with something like that, like, I don't know, if there's still a good single player, I'm willing to do it. That's actually why I stepped out and didn't play Battlefield this year, or why I didn't buy it, is because there wasn't a campaign. So I was like, all right, you give me half the game, I'll give you half the money. So once it's $30, we can talk.
Well, yeah, it pretty much dropped down to $30 in a month. Mr. Joanna Dark asked the question, your podcast mate, has EA damaged many of their great IPs due to following the money? Also, do they need to rethink this Frostbite engine that killed Anthem as well, along with other things? I'll quickly answer that and I'll kick it to the panel, because I think that Frostbite is getting a bit of a bad rap, and I don't think that it deserves it. As they said, they spent 18 months updating an engine, and that is even the Halo developers said this, updating their engine. It's a minimum of 18 months to 2 years to update an engine to bring it up to the 9th gen at the moment. It's going to take that long.
Just want to throw this out there. To be fair, Crazy Lou Gaming asked the first question. He said, "How sexy is Crazy Lou?" I think we need to respect his question.
yeah. I must have missed that one. Crazy, sorry.
And I
but-
I answered it with not as sexy as his co-hosts.
Yeah, actually, I was watching Xbox International and my TV broke. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, let's look with the Frostbite engine. No, I don't think that Frostbite is the cause of the issue. I think they needed the time to I think time is the issue. They weren't given the time to update the engine and then time to develop the game, in my personal opinion. And yes, I do think EA chases the money, and I definitely think, talking about getting rid of not Sarah Bond. Oh, who is the chick that I hate? I forget her name because she gives me nightmares. That is the Halo lead.
Bonnie Ross.
Bonnie Ross,
Yeah.
Bonnie Ross, man. Talking about getting rid of Bonnie Ross, I think the executive team at EA needs to be stripped out, kicked out, and they need a refresh of culture, personally, in my opinion. I'll kick it over to Silent Cypher to continue. Yeah, what do you think? You think the Frostbite engine has something to do with it?
I mean, it would be nice to be able, honestly, to point to one thing directly, but I'd say if I was going to point to anything directly, it would be poor leadership. You know, it's like, yeah, an engine's going to get you certain places for sure, but I feel like they continue this cadence constantly. I feel like the leadership they have, the management they have right now, is not doing them any service. As far as what they're doing, they've abandoned a bunch of their old IPs, like quality IPs. You look at stuff like Need for Speed. You remember when Need for Speed was fun? It wasn't that long ago, and all of a sudden they're just like, it's not hitting the numbers. It's not doing what a Battlefield does, something like that. So it's just like, okay, it's gone. It's frustrating. I don't know. I forget the guy's name, but he's very much a robot. It feels like there's no emotion when that guy comes up to say, like, yes, we are talking to you as gamers. We want you interested in our games. Like, I feel like I'm just, I don't know. I don't get a fuzzy feeling from the guy, and so I just don't. I feel like they could do better.
I can understand that, Cypher. I really can. Look, I know there's a lot of hate on the Frostbite engine. I don't think the engine's bad. I think any development team just needs more time to do their job properly. But what do you think about the Frostbite engine, Umbra? Would you transfer over to another engine even though it's EA's proprietary engine, or would you just give them more time?
I would switch over to a new engine. I mean, it's been problematic for them for years. I mean, it's well documented. I don't understand why they keep subjecting themselves to it, honestly. I mean, everybody knows it. As my buddy Truly pointed out in the chat, New York, he goes as under here. They're switching to the Unreal Engine for the next Mass Effect, which I'm very grateful for, by the way. And I think you have certain industry standards. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for them making their own proprietary engine, but when you know that it's not working, it's just not working. Have some of the engineers work on that, craft that, and get it in order. But in the meantime, use popular engines that we know work. Unreal Engine is one of those. Like, stick to what works. Why waste your time? You know, I know that it obviously would save them money, but at the same time, will it in the end? Because if you're not going to get the sales because of it, because of people avoiding it, because of it being a buggy mess due to that engine, you're kind of losing out anyway, aren't you?
It's
So I don't know. I think. Yeah.
has
pride thing too.
So has
Yeah.
Battlefield always been developed on the Frostbite engine? I mean, I know Mass Effect was obviously developed on Unreal Engine, and they were basically forced to transfer over. So I think that's a little bit of a different issue. But if the game is basically always been made in that Frostbite engine, I don't mind them continuing on with it. I just think that they need more time. Mass Effect, like I said, is a different story because, and I'm happy that they're going back to Unreal. But what do you think, Panda?
Two minds. Like, I think Frostbite is very much depending on what you're wanting to do with the game as to whether or not you need to use that engine. Like, Respawn used their didn't go ahead and use the Frostbite engine, even though that's generally what kind of EA makes the people do, or it's a decision, but most of their games are made on Frostbite. But like Ashtray made a good point, like the Division, that game and the Division 2 on Frostbite engine, they worked perfectly fine. I think it's, I don't know, this just felt like it needed more time. Like, I'm glad they updated it. I'm not a big advocate for the Frostbite engine. I would prefer them to grab something else, just because you always hear that there are problems with the Frostbite engine. Just like always hear about it. But this is just a hard topic, because I'm not a developer, and you don't play around on that. Like, I've played around on Unreal Engine, and that's I found quite easy to use for myself. But I haven't played around on any other engines. Yeah, it's a hard topic, but I think at this point, if it's not working for you, take the time to actually get the developers used to the upgrades on the engine and release a game when it's due to be released. Because like I said, like, doesn't matter. Sorry, what I said in chat earlier was we're just running into the issue of games are just not being released polished. Like, when you play a Nintendo game, they are not buggy as hell when they're made by first party. They're just not. They will delay a game until it is at a level of standard that they are happy for a consumer to play. And we're not seeing that.
Yeah, I agree.
All these other people, and I feel like if they had just taken the time, yes, they've upgraded the engine, but the game would have probably been a lot better in general, and us as an audience would have enjoyed it more. But yeah, I think Frostbite, I don't know, it doesn't sound like, and they're not very transparent about the capabilities of the upgrade of the engine, whereas you just hear so much about what other engines are doing. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, okay, so let's go to the developer in the panel that we've got today. So, Deli, as the only developer amongst us, what would you recommend? Would you move to a new engine, or would you stick it out with the Frostbite engine?
As a developer, I'm going to answer this question in several ways. As a developer, when you have an engine that has legacy bugs, it's time to move on, because if you have bugs that have persisted since Frostbite 2, or the original Frostbite on Battlefield 3, like, there needs to be some kind of quality control to be able to hunt those down and get those ironed out. Because if we're still running into the same stuff that we ran into a decade ago, because I think Battlefield 3 is a decade old now, then like what's the problem? If I was a EA board member, I wouldn't switch out of Frostbite, because if you've already know the tools, if everybody already knows the ins and outs of it, right? And you spend, let's say, 15 months on full production of Battlefield 2042, which is about the time that they spent on about 15 to 18 months of, actual development time on the game. So if the game has only been in development for 2 years, let's say 2 years, and DICE as a company has, I don't know, Google says 714 employees, so 700 people. If you round out the numbers, this and that, X and Y, let's just use nice and even numbers. If you spend $10 million, right, on the game's development, and then pre-orders go up to $25 million, I mean, you've made your money back. Who cares if the game bombs? And I'm assuming that's the mentality they have at EA. Because
I think I agree with that. I do, but doesn't that hurt the next game that comes out? Doesn't that consumer confidence just get destroyed if you keep doing that? And doesn't that cost more in the long run?
I mean, it really depends on their long game, right? It really depends on their consumer base. I mean, we've had bad is subjective, but we've had subpar games on launch for the last 3 iterations of Battlefield now. So Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5, and then
Battlefield 1 was released in a pretty good state. I'll definitely...
Yeah.
I'll throw down for Battlefield 1. That was one of my favorite in the series. But go on, continue. Sorry, Deli.
Okay, my bad. I spent a lot of money on Battlefield 1. That was my... I'm time to get back into Battlefield. And when I played it, I was let down. Personal opinion. But, so if you've had questionable launches for, let's just say, the last 2, I mean, what point are your consumers, like, they're just jaded by it, right? Same thing with the Bethesda crowd, like, oh, those games just released buggy. Or I've saw somebody in the chat said, well, it's a betas, it's always been rocky. It's like, do you guys as a consumer carry that mentality into it already? Yeah, it's just always been rocky, so it's acceptable. Like the skill floor, not the skill floor, but the acceptable floor of a video game has gotten so low to a point that's like a kiddie pool that you're just happy to get any content, So even if let's say they have 100 million users, even if 20 million users buys Battlefield, that more than makes up for the amount of money that they've spent on the game. Like I said, they've only spent like 15 to 18 months on the actual game full production. So I can't imagine that this game would be $80 million.
Yeah, but look, again, I don't think that I agree with you on if you've got legacy bugs, that maybe it's time to move on. But then also from the point of view of developers, wouldn't you think that time would solve these issues if they were given the time to fix the engine to the point that it's ready to go?
Oh yeah, as a developer, time is essential, is key. Like
yeah, don't you think that the legacy issues that they do have with Frostbite have become more than a time issue? Because obviously they would have had time to work on these in the background. Now I'm sure the new generation has put more problems, because they've moved to doubled the player count and things like that. But the legacy issues that are in the engine in the first place haven't been able to be fixed since they started using it way back when. So or is it just a case of EA just being stubborn now and not wanting to use anything but their proprietary engine?
It just might come down to pride. It might come down to
Cost.
money, logistics, cost. It might even come down to, well, this is how we've always done it. That BioWare magic. Like, I hate that. I cannot stand it when people are like, yeah, it's the magic. Like, no. It's crunch. It's bad management. It's a host of issues. But as a developer, obviously, we want nobody wants to make a bad product. Like, I never want, if you guys are content creators, you guys are, in your day-to-day jobs, like, you don't want, like, I don't know, I don't come to work wanting to half-ass work. Like, I don't want to come in and be like, yeah, well, I'll just put in the minimal effort and like to pay Jack and I'll be out the door. Like, as developers, we're very happy with our situation. Like, we're very happy to interact with the consumers. We're very happy to interact with the community. Like, we're very passionate about the product that we put out. But because it's a joint effort, it's a team collaborative effort, a lot of our say goes swept under the rug. Like, a lot of our say doesn't, sometimes we vote and it doesn't work. So we just have to keep, working and working until talent bleeds out. Like, I heard that like 20 or 22 people have left in the development cycle of Battlefield 2042. Mm-hmm. That's 20 people, whether or not they're high standing or low standing. They could be 20 junior developers or they could be 20 board members. But if you're going to give those members away to another studio or, I don't know, elsewhere, I think that that's very important and very indicative of your studio culture and how you treat your employees.
Absolutely.
So,
I think it's EA. We've got to move on to the next topic, but EA has a habit of not giving their developers enough time to do what they need to do. And I mean, what you were saying before, Pete, did they have the time? I don't think they did. They had Battlefield 5. They were trying to fix on the fly. At the time, through those 2 years, they had. I think it was only 6 months to maybe 8 months before 2042's release that they stopped working on Battlefield 5. They also had the Battlefront that they were working on, a couple of years previous to that as well. I don't think they have the time to really sit down with a decent amount of developers to go through the engine, fix the legacy bugs, and then move forward with a fresh canvas. So I think that EA needs to do that, or switch engines, switch to Unreal, which is easy to work with.
Just my troll comment for you guys, Riskit, there is they should just use the Slipspace engine that Halo Infinite is made on, because it was a more polished game.
Yeah, look, and absolutely, and when Microsoft buys EA, I'm sure that they will. if you've just joined the show, we've got a fire show for you today. So if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you are here, just hit the like button. It helps out the channel heaps. Thank you very much for coming along, listening to, and joining in the chat. Our next topic is the Cyberpunk current gen update. Look, I have not had a chance to play this. I should have played it last night, really, but I was playing Guardians of the Galaxy. I need to get through that game. And I did have time because I was kicked out of community game night.
You left Halo. You kicked yourself out, mate.
No one wanted me.
We wanted to win, mate. We wanted to win.
But the
Story
Cyberpunk...
of my life.
Run everyone over with warthogs, so you're probably smart that you left.
Yeah, well, you're dangerous. You're more dangerous with a warthog than you are with an assault rifle. But the Cyberpunk update is pretty big. It's actually a pretty sizable update. So they've got new weapons added. They've got additional apartments for V. They threw in a new apartment, so you would have seen that in the trailer because they did drop a trailer for PS5 and Xbox Series X. They've got a new hairdressing mirror. How exciting! They've rebalanced the gameplay economy and loot systems. And apparently that's messed up a lot of people's builds. I'll get to you, Pete, straight after this because you did play a little bit of it and you weren't entirely happy with what they've done. They've added ray tracing local shadows. So that's not ray tracing to shiny cars. It is ray trace shadows. So it's slightly different. I haven't seen the effects of it. Again, I'll get to Pete straight away because I know that he has played it. Spatial audio was added for PS5. Obviously, Xbox has already got Dolby Atmos, so it wasn't required. And Dolby Atmos is an absolutely outstanding product. I can't say enough good about that. And they've improved the crowd reactions, which apparently is 100% above what it was before. So that's great. And DualSense was added for the PS5. One thing that wasn't added for the Xbox Series S, and I want to talk about this after I've got Pete's thoughts on playing the game, is performance mode was not added to Xbox Series S, and they cited issues with memory as the reason for this. And it's not the first title that has done this, said this, but it's also, there's plenty of other titles that are bigger and badder, in my opinion, like Assassin's Creed, that were able to add a 60 FPS performance mode at 1440p, which is what the Series S is built to be able to do. That's its top level operating, is 1440p, 60 FPS, and we know it can be done. So why wasn't it done? Pete, what did you think of the update?
Look, there was good and bad to the update. I love that it's 60 FPS now. I think I've told you guys on the podcast before that this was one of the first games I played when I got my Series X, and I actually waited to get my Series. I think I got the game 2 weeks before I got my Series X, so I actually waited to get my Series X before I started playing it. And at that stage, I hadn't played any 60 FPS games. Going back and playing it in ray tracing mode in 30 FPS after I just played Halo in 120 and pretty much all other games on 60 is basically impossible. I mean, shooting is impossible. Yes, it looks beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the way to play the game. Driving is impossible. The performance mode is great. Now, I did run into bugs. I think I sent a couple of screenshots and a couple of videos of the bugs I ran into, and these are bugs that weren't in the game previous, so they're new bugs. So the game and the patch isn't flawless. In saying that, I did enjoy the 60 FPS. It just makes a remarkable difference to all games. It really does. Visually, it's beautiful. The best thing I found about it is the crowd reaction. So when you go out and you fire a weapon out in the city, the crowd reaction to whatever you're doing is done so much better. The city actually feels alive. The people feel real. They're not just, robots walking along while, you're killing people next to them. Adding on top of that, the police will now actively start hunting you down if you do fire your weapon out in public, which I know a lot of people had a big problem with when the game first came out. So that is great. So there is a lot of good here. There's also a lot of things that I just don't know enough about now. Like, they have respect the way you level up your perks and stuff. All your perks have been, given back to you, and there are some differences. I had a stealth handgun build, and the cool tree has been changed from stealth to ninjutsu. So I don't know enough about it to go into detail, but and because it's been so long since I've played it, I'm a little bit lost in what I want to level up. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. They've also removed evasion and replaced it with mitigation. There's a couple of different. So there's mitigation strength, and there's another mitigation. So they've changed other aspects of the game that I can't tell you whether are good or bad. I just haven't played it enough. In saying that, I think it's good. Being able to buy a new property, being able to change what your character looks like in the mirror, at any time is great. And they've added a few other things into the game. So all in all, if you haven't played Cyberpunk, I think it's the best time to play it now. I've always been a person that has said that Cyberpunk got a bad rap. I think it's better than a lot of people said it was at the start of the game, and I think that's because people were expecting it to be on the level of The Witcher 3, and it's hard to strike lightning twice. I mean, Witcher 3 is one of the greatest games ever made. This is a good game. It's not a great game, but it's better than most.
Absolutely. Look, I'm just going to get to a couple of the super chats. We don't actually have super chats. We're not a massive channel or even a large channel. Not big enough to have super chats yet. We will get there one day. But Ashtray said, great show, guys. Thanks, Ashtray. You're a friend of the channel. Love having you here, man. I really appreciate it. And look, if you do want to ask a question and you write question within your comment, it will highlight it on my end and I will definitely get to it. Grum said, just getting a little bit off topic, but Grum asked, Delhi, is being a dev what you expected it would before you became one, or is it different to your expectations?
I think that when I became a developer, I was a consumer. So I started my background is I started indie development in 2015. And then I got hired on at Ubisoft in 2017. So I just shot a bunch of shots in the dark, and I ended up getting a nice deal from Ubisoft. So I went out there and did my thing. I don't know. As a consumer, it's always cool to see, the magic unfold before your eyes. But as a developer, it's super nice to be able to work on something for several months. Like just work on an alleyway. Something I did. I was a level designer, so LD. So I worked on an alleyway for like several months, and then it finally came to fruition, and I was like, oh man, this is super cool. I made something with my hands. I made something with a collaborative effort. Something came to life before my eyes. As for studio culture and stuff, my expectation was that everything was going to be tight knit, like everything was going to be cool. I'm just going to basically hang out a bunch of people who really love games, who just really love their craft. It was a mixed opinion, probably 60-40. Like 40% of people are there just to work. It's just like any other job for them. It pays the bills. They come in, they do their job, they leave. And then 60% of people I found in the workplace was like really enjoyable. I'd like to hang out with them outside of work. They're very passionate. They're very cool. But because of talent and the constant rotation of talent, like the game development industry, as for developers, is actually really small and tight knit. So a lot of the people that I knew from Ubisoft, like the 60 or 70 people that worked in my department at Ubisoft, now they're spread across the industry. So there's like 12 people that I know that work at Activision. There's 9 people that work at Bungie. There's like 4 or 5 people that work at 343, and now I'm at Microsoft. But there's a bunch of other people that are just spread across PlayStation studios, indie studios, whatever it may be. But yeah, my expectations were I was a little let down, but I think I still have the magic in my eyes. I still love it.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thanks for answering Grum's question. I was going to throw it out there. Has anyone else managed to play the updated version of Cyberpunk?
I haven't played it yet, but I watched it, and from what I've seen, it's clearly visually improved just a bit. I don't think it's like such a jump that it's like, oh man, I gotta play it now. Yeah, but the 60 frames per second is nice. Obviously, some of the bugs being fixed is really great. And I like the new additions to the new weapons and apartments that should have been at launch. I'm still puzzled by why they didn't have that at launch, where you can actually buy places. But to me, it just wasn't enough. By the way, I love Cyberpunk. I just want to throw it out there. So I get the slander, but I still love that. I still love that game. Like I said before, many times, I put over 459 hours into that game. So I loved it. My 1,000, whatever you want to call it. I got all the achievements for it. Loved it. So I'm definitely still, Team CD Projekt Red. I just want them to add more. I need more meat. They're gonna have to add a story DLC for me to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I've played a little tiny bit of it. No, I honestly wasn't impressed. I think I put it down after about an hour. Maybe it was a bit more than that. You lose time playing video games, but I wasn't impressed. But I will go back to play this update. Silent Cypher, did you have a chance to play Cyberpunk at any point?
Yes, so I did get to play it. I've gotten a couple hours into it so far, just to kind of mess around with it. This is going to go a little bit different than what you were probably expecting, but yeah. So visually, I'm happy with the change, but I think more than anything, the stability I think is the thing that popped out the most for me. And we're going to do a quick little story time, real fast, I promise. So the first time I jumped into this game, right when it came out, I was super excited to play Cyberpunk. My son was hanging out with me, so I was like, oh, this will be fine. I'll just hang out, play this while he's chilling. So I created my character, which obviously when you create your character's naked, and so you get to see all of the facet that is your character. And so then I threw on some clothes, didn't think anything of it. Well, going back to the, bugs being fixed and situations like that, the first time I walked into the bathroom and I looked into the mirror, my character in all of his glory, without all of his clothes, was just standing stark naked right there in the mirror, and my son saw my character swinging in the mirror. Now, here's the thing, right? Is if I play the game now, I go to the mirror, that's fixed. Now, it was funny, don't get me wrong. It probably scarred my child, but it was funny. So
the game's rated R for a reason. It is rated R for a reason.
To be fair, he probably shouldn't have been sitting there watching me play that game.
The game should have been in third person. That's one thing that I'll never get over. The story is magnificent, but you can obviously see that the design choices that they had initially were meant for the game being in third person. I mean, you do all this, you go through all this designing your character and, being able to, be able to change your clothes and your hairstyle, and your character looks amazing in this game. And you never get to see them.
And yet the only time you see them is when you bounce out for a motorcycle or a car.
Exactly. Or if you want to take a picture of yourself or something silly like that. And it's just, it would have been a gem like The Witcher is, and I just don't understand that design choice to go to first person. The story is there. Now that they fixed the city and the way that, people react and the density of the city, this game could have been something absolutely special, and I just hope that we get a Cyberpunk 2 that is, next gen or current gen only, so they don't have to worry about, developing for the, in the old systems. I think that they have something special on their hands here.
Yeah, we've got a question from Doovie in the chat. Does anyone think that the multiplayer for Cyberpunk 2077 is still coming? No, Doovie, it's not.
I think they already said that it's not coming.
Yeah, in an strategy update that the CEO, Adam Krinsky, put up, he stated that plans for the game had been reconsidered and that they would be cancelling the multiplayer, which is unfortunate but not unexpected. Panda, you were about to say.
I was just going to say that I think you were 100% right there about the fact that this needed to have a third-person mode. Like, it definitely needed it. I mean, Skyrim gave you the option to go first-person or third-person, and it allowed people to play the game that they wanted to play, and it's why that game is so loved. Like, those choices, and being able to, customize your character and so on and so forth. Like, if you're gonna spend all that time doing it, at least give people the opportunity to see it. I played a lot of Cyberpunk. I loved it. I played it only on the Series X. I probably would have been one of those people who would have hated it if it was on a last-gen console. So all the people who bought it on last-gen consoles, apologies. Obviously, the mid-gen refreshes made it a bit more palatable, but like, I tried it in the 30 FPS mode, and it was unplayable in 30 FPS mode. So I only played it in 60.
I played it in 30 because of the density of the city. In quality, I mean, it was a massive difference, Panda, if you didn't realize, and that's why I stuck to the 30 when it initially came out. There was just nobody in the city when you played it on 60 when it first came out. I mean, it just looked like the city was dead.
It was too disorientating for me though to play it in 30. So I've still got to I put down the game. I played a lot of that game, and I put down it because they announced that they were gonna do the next gen patches, and I was like, all right, I won't touch it until the next gen patch comes out. And finally, it's out. But I jumped in the other day, and I was like, I don't even remember how to play the game anymore because it's been that long. Like, they should have really, and I know the sad thing is they should have delayed that game. It really needed a delay.
Oh, no doubt.
Big time. But I'm going to jump in and I'm going to see what the full ramifications of the next gen patches are. I've read about it. I've watched videos. I definitely agree it does look better, but with the art style and what they went with the game, it's not really going to be a massive leap. I think it's really about that stability is what people were after, because there's one thing that, like, I didn't run into too many bugs, but then there were bugs that, like, I couldn't complete side quests. So, like, that's what I wanted from the game. Like, I loved, like, the side quests, I loved the game, the story, everything like that, but it was just the stability of the game was let down by the release of it at the time. And I think that's what I'm going to be looking for on the next gen patch. Is it stable, and have they resolved a whole heap of those issues that I ran into? Because if it's not, then I won't pick up that game again until there's a new patch to say that they've resolved a whole heap of those issues. I know that.
Yeah, look, the stability is there as far as I was aware. I did play it. It was quite stable. I mean, I played it for a couple of hours, so that's not the biggest sample size. But
of the,
I did. That happened once. Yeah, it's so as soon as you leave your apartment and you go down to the street, there was the NPCs just crossing the road, directly in front of you, and they looked like they were, I don't know, wearing some weird art.
Triangle outfits?
Triangle outfits. And then I turned around and my whole screen was just filled with this red haze with, black marks across the entire screen. But it only happened once. It didn't happen anywhere else in the city, so I don't know why that happened. But it did get a lot better after that. But that was my first impression, so it wasn't a good one, Panda.
Has anyone noticed that in Sea of Thieves, when you eat a banana, you don't peel it? It's a bit weird. That's a bit of a weird design choice.
Also eat the banana the right way.
Yeah, right.
To peel it off. Give me all those vitamins.
Yeah.
We got to move on. We got a lot to get through, guys.
I just wanted to say before we do risk it that all the way back in, I think, 2019, Jason Schreier did report on this, and a lot of the people within CD Projekt Red was saying that this game wouldn't be ready till early 2022, and he got a lot of pushback because of that, and boy, was he right.
Well, that's kind of what we're moving on to. The CD Projekt Red developers, some more, because there's been quite a few, have broken away from CD Projekt Red and started their own studio, Rebel Wolves. And it's the second slew of developers that have broken away. They had lost their producer, their game producer for The Witcher 3 earlier in 2021. And then later in 2021, another set of developers had broken away to start working for another studio, bringing up a game called, see if I can find it here, Invincible. And that's with Starwood Industries. And then obviously there's this new studio starting up, Rebel Wolves. I mean, you've got to look at CD Project Red and their history with Cyberpunk and then even possibly The Witcher 3 with crunch. Apparently, Jason Schreier had written an article, and in that article that Pete just mentioned, he also talked about the crunch from the developers and the pushback and the fact that the developers weren't in on the decisions that were being made, and they were just forced upon them without any kind of consultation or transparency. They would just get their orders and off they would go like an army. Deli, is this a common thing with crunch and with larger studios that you don't have any kind of say in the development of a game as you develop it?
Yeah, that's pretty normal. Yeah, again, it depends on studio culture, but most of the time when you have meetings, it's like, I don't know, throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping something sticks, and then, you know, we run with it. And it could be potentially something as bad as, well, in my personal experience, like investing 6 months in a prototype and then going, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, what? They're like, oh yeah, the I don't know, the guys over in France like don't like it. Yves Guillemot doesn't like it. What? Scrap it. What do you mean? Like, oh, just throw it away and start over. Like, okay. And stuff like that happens all the time. You know, you spend 2 or 3 months on a prototype or a concept or a vertical slice, and then you'd have to scrap it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the guy over at Rebel Wolves cited that he would be focusing on a happy team creating games, and that they want to create without the crunch. He didn't say there would be no crunch, but he did allude to the fact that he would have an open, transparent operating style. He said, collectively, we envision Rebel Wolves as a place where experienced game developers can reignite their passion, where they can focus on their craft, pour their love into an amazing, ambitious title, and we want to stay small and agile. We've heard that before. And a place where people know and care for each other. This was said by Thomas, I can't say his name, it's Polish, Thomas Skiewicz. That's terrible. If he's listening, I apologise. But he's actually...
sure Tom's here, mate.
He was accused of bullying at CD Projekt Red. He was cleared of bullying, and he's a game director. So... pretty interesting that he's really focusing on the team. And there's who's actually gone into the team is you've got a design director, a narrative director, the main writer for The Witcher 3. These are all guys who worked on The Witcher 3. The animation director, the art director, and the studio head. That's pretty telling. Those guys are all fairly important positions within a development studio. And for all of them to lead CD Projekt Red, and with the slew of developers that have left before, you start to ask questions about who's left at CD Projekt Red for the next Witcher game. Silent Cypher, does this make you concerned for The Witcher 4, which I hope we do see?
You know, any time that we see, I guess high-level talent go away from teams, going into new games like that, it always makes me a little bit nervous. But I think more than anything, I think I'm just more happy, honestly, for that team that got away and is doing Rebel Wolves and is going to be off doing their own thing. Like, obviously, the last couple years have been really rough for CD Projekt Red in general. So if there's any, nice humane take on it, it's the fact that some people got away from it and are maybe able to do what they want to do again, and maybe able to put more passion into it again. And maybe getting away from what they've run into for the last couple of years will help with that. But yeah, no, I would be nervous with it, because I feel like it was a few months ago we ended up hearing that we were going to get a current gen upgrade for Witcher, and that we were going to start seeing more games come from them. And all I could think was, like, guys, Cyberpunk's not even done yet. Like, let's not worry about other games yet. Mm-hmm. That makes me nervous. But yeah, no, I definitely would say I'll go into this next one with some caution. I think especially with what we saw with Cyberpunk, like, it took a long time. If they tell us it's going to come out quick, I would put a couple of years on it and then approach it.
Yeah, I mean, that's very telling of you to say, and the trust that we were talking about with EA as well. Because before Cyberpunk, with The Witcher 3, which is many people's games of all time, they could do no wrong, this studio.
Right.
Umbra, I know that Witcher 3 was one of your favourites, the Cyberpunk also. Are you excited to see these guys leave and start a new studio, or are you concerned about where this takes CD Projekt Red?
Well, I'm actually very excited. I mean, anything with some action RPG is already in my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So, and seeing these guys do that, I mean, I don't, I would like to know more about who exactly is leaving and what role they had on, The Witcher 3. But
yep. So,
absolutely,
on that, yep. So all these guys worked on The Witcher 3, every single one of them. It was the design director, Daniel Swadowski, narrative director, Jacob Skimelik, animation director, Tamara Zawada, art director, Bartholomew Goel, and the CFO of CD Projekt Red. So that's some big names, some very big swinging dicks there moving across to this new studio.
Damn.
Well, even better. I mean, I'm actually very excited. I'm the type where I typically get really excited anyway when it's quality devs working on something like that. So I'm always going to be behind something like that. And absolutely. I mean, maybe we'll have a Witcher Light, if you will, Witcher 3 Light, to see what they can do. I'm interested in that. Well, absolutely. So
the talk that came out from the article about it is that it is basically exactly the genre that Witcher falls into. A dark fantasy third-person action-adventure RPG. So that's pretty bang on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested in seeing what they do. I think it all obviously comes down to the story. If they can manage to make it more in depth, like Witcher 3 managed to do with their side missions, where they felt like main missions, I'm all for it, 100%.
Mm-hmm. What was the name of the DLC for Witcher that released? Blood Moon or
Blood and
Blood and Wine.
Blood and Wine, and what was the other one?
I never remember it.
Stone Heart of Stone.
Oh, well, apparently the size of this game is it's got a target date of 2025, and the size of the game is they related it to Blood and Wine. Deli, are you excited to see this? I mean, are you starting to update your resume to move across to Rebel Wolves?
I just recently applied to Remedy Games, so I will see. We'll hear back from that. But I don't know. It
Quantum
could be.
Break 2, please.
I will let them know.
Good luck.
I'm excited. I'm always excited for seeing your talent. To be honest with you, I think those guys that moved over seem to be a core part of Witcher 3. So it seems to me, anyways, that they understand the game. They understand the writing. I mean, there's the narrative designer there. And I think that if they can carry that same energy, love, and passion into their new studio, I can only think of positives for the new game.
Yeah, absolutely. Me as well. Red Dead Panda, is this up your alley? Are you excited for this? I know I'm pretty on the edge of my seat to see what they come out with.
I can't wait to see it. Anytime we have another game coming out that sounds like it's up my wheelhouse, like I love RPGs. Like when I did that Xbox 20-year thing last year, my top 5 games all RPGs. Yeah, so I think like action adventure, right up my alley. I mean, I'm not too worried about CD Projekt Red. I don't think they're going anywhere, and they can just get new talent because they have that kind of caliber, or that, you know,
A reputation.
Yeah, that's it. The reputation that they've got. So I think they'll be able to really fill that up. But it's just nice to see that people are moving off and going, hey, we've got things that we want to focus on, and if that means leaving and starting your own studio, then that's the right thing to do. But like, what do you guys think around like their past history with Xbox, like CD Projekt Red, and these guys coming from CD Projekt Red? Do you think like in 2025, if this game releases, then there might be marketing deals with Xbox, or there might be like a Game Pass deal with Xbox?
I would love to see that. That would be absolutely amazing. However, he did state he was keeping his studio small to an 80-person studio. I mean, obviously you have other studios come in and assist. We've seen
how big
that
is the Sobo who
initiative.
makes A Plague's Tale? Because I don't feel like they're
They're at about
massive.
90 big, yeah, you're right.
Yes, I
yeah,
reckon
not that big.
They
Yep.
came to Game Pass. They have the marketing rights for like Requiem and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, I think it's possible.
Oh, it's definitely possible. I don't see an acquisition. I think after you've left a large conglomerate type company.
marketing right from Game Pass, maybe.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Gord, one of the studios, the game they're making is Gord, and they said that it's basically going to be Steam only. They're only using Unreal Engine 4, but Rebel Wolves have said that their game is coming to PC and next-gen consoles, plural. So, and they're both doing dark fantasy titles that are concentrating on Slavic culture, which is just great to me. You know, I loved The Witcher. I think I've said it before that it's, my favorite game of all time, and I love that culture. I just think that dark setting and it just lends itself to video games so much.
Absolutely, and then, as Pete just mentioned there is a second studio working on a AA title. They're using Unreal 4. The name of the title they're working on is called Gord. And that's the producer that came from CDPR. The other title is called I've lost it. I said it before. You can rewind.
Invincible or something like that, mate.
Yeah, Invincible. Yeah, or something like that. Both of these you can find those online on YouTube. There is trailers. But this new studio is using Unreal 5, which is fantastic. Gord is only going to PC, unfortunately. But moving on to Silent Cypher, are you excited to see what Rebels put out?
Yes, yeah, I definitely think again, like having a new team jump out like that, having some get away from CD Projekt Red side of things, and getting to actually be more creative with it, and maybe bring something new to the IP and stuff. I would love to see some more new IPs, because I feel like we always end up getting
remakes.
A lot of sequels, remakes, remasters, especially nowadays. Yes, for me, I think that'd be awesome, and I don't care. It doesn't have to be a big AAA thing, AA, whatever. Just give me an experience that's fun to play, even if it's 4 hours. Like, if it's something that stays with me, cool.
Yeah. I'm bigger
Awesome.
on short games. I'm with you there. I'm actually bigger on short games as I've gotten older and become more time poor. So short games to me are
100%.
awesome. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, Pete's decided to leave the show. I'm sure he'll be back. But we'll move.
Game tonight, so
There
he's
he
like,
is.
I'm leaving.
There he
There
is.
he is.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
It's the community game night for me. No one wants to play with me. So we'll move on to the title of the show, or the thumbnail show, was Horizon Forbidden West, released to pretty stellar reviews for the most part, and got a very decent score for the most part. It was 89, apparently changed to 88 in the course of us doing this show, which is not bad. That's not a bad game. That exists in the realm of so many good games that were fantastic. What was the last Horizon Zero Dawn? I think that was only in the 80s, the high 80s as well.
89.
89.
Yeah,
so,
I think it was 89, yeah.
yeah, so
89.
I don't think they've missed the mark. However, it did have some middling reviews, which took it down from out of the 90s. And fanboys, they dropped a lot of salt over this one. Twitter was highly active with reports and accusations that the media is Xbox biased, which is just absolutely ridiculous. If the media is biased towards any side, it has been PlayStation from day dot, and it has not changed. Look, apparently the game mechanics are improved. It's graphically improved, and from what I've seen, it looks amazing. I haven't played it. I will play it. I found Horizon Zero Dawn as boring as batshit. I could not think of anything worse to do or to play on a day. But I will try this game.
Robot dinosaurs?
Yeah, robot dinosaurs, but trapping them? Like, I want to kick their ass with a machine gun or something. I don't know. So yeah, look, it wasn't my thing. I found it tedious and boring. I did only put 3 hours into it, and some people on Twitter would say that is not playing a game. Some people on Twitter expect you to finish a game. Even someone I was speaking to last night, you must finish a game before you can have an opinion on it. And I say, fuck that. Deli, you haven't had a chance to play Horizon, but what did you think of what you've seen so far?
Oh, I think it looks gorgeous. I think that, I mean, I'm really not out of work mode that often, so a lot of the screenshots I see, I'm like, oh my god, like the particle effects, the the rendering distances. I'm like, this is all super super cool. Like, I wonder if like us as a studio, or or people across around the world are looking at this game and studying it and being like, what can we learn from this? Because game developers, because it's a small tight-knit industry, like, we like to talk and like to hang out. So I'm sure I'll reach out to some of my friends that work over at Gorilla and be like, how did you guys do this? And pick up some tips and stuff. But across the board, it seems like everybody seems to like it, and it upgrades in majority of the ways from the previous game. So I like the previous game. I thought it lulled a little bit, and because of the length of the game and the amount of content in it, I was hesitant on replaying the original Zero Dawn, just because I just really really dislike like the first 10 hours. It's a little sluggish, but anything after that is pretty good.
How long was the first game to complete?
About 25 hours.
Yeah, about 25. What, just doing Golden Path, but if you did like side content stuff and did some upgrades and weapons and exploring, it could be anywhere between 35 to 40 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, look, I actually think that this one does look better. As with all second games within a given time and money, and pretty much most PlayStation titles, let's be fair, are great. I didn't particularly like the first one either. I lost interest in it as well. I felt the story was tedious, and I didn't particularly like the combat. But the look of this game is amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. And anyone that worries about what Metacritic says and makes decisions on what they buy based on the score that it gets by Metacritic, just isn't a gamer. Just don't worry about that. If you like the look of the game, if you like, that genre, go for it. It's a PlayStation game. You're going to enjoy it. They are, they're always quality titles. Don't let the fanboys get you down. Don't let the console wars get you down. Just go out and enjoy the game. What do you think about it, Umbra? I know you haven't had a chance to play it, but what do you think of what you've seen so far?
I mean, visually, like Deli said, it's beautiful. I mean, it's no need to sit there and try to deny that. I mean, the Decima engine in general, we got to give Sony credit for that. I'm hoping with all the proprietary engines that Microsoft now has at their disposal, they start using that for more of their games as well, like a lot of the engines they have, like the id engine and such. But no, it's a gorgeous game. I've liked some of the gameplay I've seen of it. It looks pretty solid overall. I'm not sure how the story is. I wasn't that entrenched in the first one. It didn't really do anything for me. Just want to be honest. I'm going to go back to it and try to play all the way through it, but it didn't catch my attention at the time. And I was kind of like, it didn't really do it for me. But hopefully, when I give it another chance, it will, and I go ahead and give this one a chance. Visually, like I said, it's stunning. You got to give it credit for that alone. I think it's also interesting to see how far they've come. Yeah, it's interesting to see how far they've come too. I mean, from what was it, Killzone before?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, it was like Killzone in 2013, and then Zero Dawn in 2016 or 2017.
Yeah, I think
right. To go from that to
this, was a launch title for PS4. Yeah,
right. To go from that to this, I mean, it's pretty impressive. I give them major credit there.
And what I give them credit for also is they actually made a new IP. I mean, it's so rare to see a new AAA title because you're going to be putting a lot of money into a AAA game, and to produce a new IP is dangerous. And you got to give PlayStation credit for that.
I agree 100% on that one.
Especially in an area that they are not familiar with.
Yeah.
That's right. They made shooters before. That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
What's that other game with zombies? The motorcycle guy that didn't get a second game.
Days
Gone.
They didn't get a second game because of the Metacritic score. That's what PlayStation said, even though it sold quite well. So I do find that interesting, and I don't know why PlayStation went in that direction. Obviously, Guerrilla Games
I can answer that question for you.
Critical Guerrilla Games says. Yeah, well, but why? But why? Because
when you spend
Metacritic matter.
Well, because that's our gateway into seeing like what we did right and what we did wrong, right? That's our gateway to judging the game. So when you have a Metacritic critical reception, and then you have an audience reception. And they crunch the numbers. I'm sure Sony can see this, but if you spend, let's say, $10 million on a game, and it makes, $40 million, right? So you have a net profit of 30 million, blah, X and Y. But your critical reception is 60, 70, let's say 75, easy number. And your audience retention and your audience reception is also around 60, 75. It's hard for a large company to say, yeah, we'll greenlight a sequel, because a new IP, comparing that to a sister studio like Ghost of Tsushima and Sucker Punch, also released to critical acclaim, audience retention was high, multiplayer was high, and they already greenlit a sequel. So when you have those numbers and like palpable evidence on a sheet of paper, like on an Excel spreadsheet that says like, yes, it sold well, yes, we made our money back, yes, it was great, but are we going to spend more money? Are we going to spend twice as much money on the sequel for a bigger, more bombastic sequel, just to have the same critical reception, to have a lukewarm one, to have try to put effort into winning over people? It starts to see we're gonna start seeing diminishing returns.
Critical acclaim doesn't always mean that gamers are going to like it. Look at The Last of Us 2 and how divisive that was. What do you think, Panda?
Battlefield, though. Think about that. The reason that is there is because they just make so much money off it. But critical reception, Sony has a history of quality control around games, and they're kind of like Nintendo in the aspect they want to release games that are polished, that they live up to the reputation and the brand promise that is PlayStation. So I feel like for this, going back to Horizon Forbidden West, if you've got eyes, you can definitely see the changing or the differences between the first game and the second game, like the water physics and everything they've done on there, and the shaders, and the game is visually impressive. And for it to be cross-gen the way it is, and look the way it is on last gen and current gen with the PS5, they did an amazing job. I guess my biggest issue with this is the fact that when is anything less than 90? When does that become a bad game? Anything in the 80s, when does that become a bad game? I feel like people really, really need to start looking at reviews and going, it is just a guideline. If you want to buy a game and play a game, do it. But
and it's just an opinion of the writer. Form your own opinion, people.
Yeah, form your own opinion. If you're not happy with it, go play it, and then tell anyone else if you love the game to go play the game. Because, word of mouth for hardcore gamers, if I play a game,
that's what
and I
gaming
really like
always used to be. Word of mouth. Yep.
Word of mouth. And I feel like this is the hardest thing. Is 88 and 89 is not a bad Metacritic score. Not a bad Metacritic score at all. The first, Drake's Fortune Uncharted game was 88, and then that got a sequel and so on and so forth. But I guess the hardest thing is looking at a community and going that the score doesn't meet the expectation that they thought it was going to meet, and now they're really upset and crying about it because they wanted it to get a 90. They wanted it to do better than the previous game. Doesn't matter.
There's still 12 unfinished reviews out there. It could still bump it up
could hit
to a 90.
Yeah, and then once it hits 90, I guess then they'll be happy with it. But I'm really happy with that score. I think it's a great score, and it's just disappointing me that there's part of the gaming community that is so blinded by Metacritic that they forget that they can play games. That games are about our enjoyment, what we do when we experience playing the game. Because you could tell me till you're blue in the face that this game is really great. I won't know it's great until I actually play it myself.
Exactly. Look, that does. I agree with all of that, but PlayStation games are expensive. I suppose if I am going to play devil's advocate, $70 for a game in the States, $125 full price game in Australia. I'm not sure what it is in New Zealand. That's a lot of money to play. So I suppose a lot of people will make their decision.
Like
yeah, a lot of people will make that decision based on these scores. I still think 88, 89, whatever it is, is a magnificent score, and
Yeah.
the game looks beautiful. And you know what you know you're going to get quality because it's a PlayStation title. They put out nothing but polished, great titles. So yeah, there are two sides to the coin, I suppose.
But I liked Deli's take on it up there. I mean, obviously it does matter to game developers, and there is bonus structures around Metacritic. Deli, does an 89 normally fall into that bonus area for developers?
Again, it depends on the studio, but for Ubisoft, yeah, most definitely. I mean, I can't really say much because our game got like a 70 across the board on Metacritic. Like, I'm looking at it right now, it's 76 on Xbox One, 72 on PC, 66 on PlayStation 5, 70 on PlayStation 4, and then 81 on a Series X. Like, it's so, it's a large number, but for us, it's like Ubisoft's like, yeah, that it made money, it was good, it sold a lot of money, it made a lot of money for them, so they're happy. But I don't know, for PlayStation, if they spend $60 million on this game and it makes back 60 million and then some, and then they look at the numbers and say, well, yeah, like, I don't know, 12% of people beat the game, so obviously people don't care about it. Or, I don't know, 10% of the people played more than 4 hours. It's like, there's a lot of metrics that Sony has that obviously we don't know, but, I mean, there's probably a general good reason why they didn't greenlight a sequel, but
I think
yeah, 89 would fall in bonus territory for us, yeah.
I think you're right, Deli. Like, spending that much money on a game, like to build a game, and it for just be not a games as a service type one where you've got like constant transactions coming in and supplementing that. So I think they are definitely really strict when it comes to greenlighting new games based on the genre and style of the games that they tend to make. So I think
New IPs are always difficult, but Panda, they're always difficult.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, like, PlayStation likes to use a lot of their in-house structure. So if you spend $60 million on, I don't know, a horde system or like enemy AI, it's like, can we really use that? Like, if you spend the same $60 million on Ghost of Tsushima, they have a wonderful asset management system going on. That game loads ridiculously fast just on the base PlayStation 4. Like, that's something you can use across the board for all of your studios. But like, there's obviously there's many reasons.
The Days Gone Horde system could work in city building games, for example.
I mean, it could be. Would you like to spend $60 million on just one feature?
But look, I just find it strange that Guerrilla Games got a second game greenlit, a new IP, and then Days Gone developer didn't. I just feel that, and even the guy that made the game, I forget his name, felt hard done by as well.
Ben Studio, yeah, the lead from Ben Studio. I think. Yeah. Well, that is interesting, and what metrics they measured that game by, we don't know. But from what we can tell throughout the industry and from what Deli's saying, Metacritic is important to a game. And look, 88 is. I haven't played the game. From the looks of it, it's not a bad score. It's not a terrible score, and I think that Horizon, from what I hear from the community around me and from my own experience with Horizon Zero Dawn, it's not a game for everyone. And I think that when you have games like this, that aren't for everyone, you're probably not often going to hit in the 90s. I mean, sometimes you will, but I think the general norm is that you won't. Silent Cypher, do you think that Metacritic is it a big way that you choose the games that you play, or do you just go based on what you hear and see in the community and hear from friends?
So, like, I'll look at reviews, I'll watch the videos, I'll look at stuff like that. Usually I kind of go more for the long form stuff, the long articles, the more detailed ones. Like, we talked about this a little bit on XBI too, is the fact that, like, the score system is just it's not a perfect system, right? Like, especially if you're in a situation like a out of 5. And so someone gives you a 3, boom, you're instantly down to a 60. And when people see that, because a lot of consumers see stuff like that, and they're just like, oh, well, I'm not going to play that game because it's a dud. But it's really not, like, it just feels like, especially with how many times we've seen the score system be reworked, retooled over the years by like IGN and places like that. I've lost interest in the number side of it, right? Like I'd rather watch someone play some of the game, or like even just do a podcast about it and just talk about their hands-on experience of the game, because I feel like that just goes so much farther nowadays. You know, it's like we have the tech to sit here and like talk to each other. We can watch people streaming the games, and I feel like it's a modern solution to the number system on reviews and stuff. Like I think that's how I personally prefer to go at it. Kind of think it's an obsolete system to an extent. I don't really. I mean, obviously with Game Pass, like we were talking about earlier, if there's a game on there and it looks kind of interesting, I'll just give it a shot. But if there's something that I want to put the money down on, right? Like I'll watch some videos on it. I'll get a feel for it from there, and I'll go that route. Like maybe I'll look at scores just out of curiosity, just to kind of see like what everyone's saying. But I think the biggest thing is just due diligence of looking through multiple sources and not just relying on like one or two people's opinions. Because again, it's their opinion. We were just talking about it in the chat of Crackdown, right? Like Crackdown 3 was definitely not an amazing game, but it was a good game, and it
was fun, wasn't it? It got such a bad rap, but it was a fun game.
It was a fun game.
And it got panned on pretty hard. And it's like if you just went off of the reviews, which a lot of people probably did, I guarantee you a lot of people did not touch that game. Which again is one of the many reasons why we won't see a Crackdown 4, sadly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my thought.
People just use Metacritic though to justify their purchase in relation to their plastic box. It's just hard looking at that. Yes, it's nice to go, I did pick a nice game, but just to use it as
affirmation.
Just to use it as like a talking point
justify.
and to fight with people who also love gaming. Like I don't know, it's hard to look at that and just and you can understand why like some reviewers are just like ignore all of the trolls, because there are so many people online who just go and harass these
and it hurts as a developer to see that the consumers are using it as like an achievement, like a badge of honor. Like, oh, did you guys even play the game?
And Crackdown 3 launched during that time period where everybody was hating and dunking on Xbox.
Yes, 100%.
No, I was excited for Crackdown 3. That was like one of the reasons I was like, yeah, I'm buying an Xbox.
Terry Crews, man. How can you go wrong with Terry Crews? This guy's a legend.
It was so good. I would say the only bummer is that they didn't utilize Terry Crews enough, right? Like it felt like they kind of bolted him on as something to get extra people in.
Well, another game that we talked about earlier today as well, Rise. Rise received a 60 on Metacritic on Xbox One.
And it's a really good game.
Xbox community.
Yeah, and it's and we're calling for a sequel. Everyone wants to see this sequel. And Crytek make beautiful games. I don't think Metacritic is the end all and be all, like you were saying, Silent Cypher. I completely agree. I think there's plenty of tools out there available to gamers for us to make our own decisions and decide. And you don't have to go to war over every single game that's released. I mean, I will, because I find it hilarious in Twitter. If you see me on Twitter, things that I say on Twitter, I don't actually believe. I just like to fish occasionally. Umbra? Rise
was in that time when Microsoft were pushing Kinect and they wanted someone to make a Kinect game. And look, I'm glad that Crytek changed Rise into the game that it was, but it really was hard done by. That game needs a sequel. It's so good. The combat was absolutely, like they just bagged on it so much, but it's really not that different to Batman, which is, universally loved as probably one of the best gameplay mechanics in games and combat in games. It's just strange.
Umbra, were you...
so much with it.
Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
I was going to say they could have done so much more with the next one and iterated on that, because when you watch and look at the videos around the development, they had someone in kind of like what's happening with Hellblade 2, where they hired someone to teach them about like the weight of the weapons and like stance and holding everything. Like they put a lot of effort into that game, and you could see that when you played it, and it was just hard to kind of just watch people review that and review bomb it. Essentially, it felt like it was being review bombed, basically, just because it was Xbox and Xbox One at the start of the generation. Just basically,
Not too many R-rated games, and just walking down that path with those dead bodies hanging over the trees. Oh, so good. So much to that game could have been something really special.
Oh, I think it was. It just there was a few points that let it down, and I think in today's environment it would have got a much higher score. I mean, us Xbots now will unite and stop review bombing. I've seen that happen a few times. Umbra, what do you think of Rise? Would you like to see a sequel? Do you think that Metacritic is an important metric to measure your games by? How do you choose what games you like? You just use your own head, or do you need a site to tell you what's good and what's not?
I usually look to the ponies to tell me. If they say it's bad, then that's what it is.
Then you'd find it, definitely. That's a great way to make decisions, mate.
But no, seriously, I mean, people use the Metacritic for good and bad. It's the unfortunate part about it, because it's a scored system, so they're gonna, it's got this, so it's valid, or it's got this low of a score, so it's terrible, so they're gonna use it however they want. The unfortunate part is, like Panda said, where people take it and get extremely toxic with it, and they'll go to threaten people over it and things of that nature, or dox them. It's like, does it really take all of that? Like, I didn't appreciate some of the scores I saw for some Xbox games. I won't sit here and cap and act like I did, but overall, I thought it was overly fair, but at the same time, I don't give them enough credence over what I decide to play, that it matters as much to me. And I think people have put in an over-reliance on Metacritic itself. I think OpenCritic is much more fair in that sense, by the way. But also, I just want to say this too, as far as Rise, absolutely. Rise, I think Mad Max. I don't know if anyone has ever played that or have not played it, but if you haven't, I would definitely recommend it. It's getting a sequel, by the way. Those games, to me, are two of the games I think that were unfairly rated. And I mentioned it earlier about Sifu and how it's very relatable combat-wise to Rise, Son of Rome. Yet Rise was kind of panned in a way where Sifu has been praised. I just find it interesting. Now, I know that just the combat alone is not the only the critic meta rather for it, but I think it just got that unfair judgment due to the Xbox One launch, unfortunately. But I actually absolutely would love a sequel to Rise. Hopefully they have that in the mix. Yeah.
I definitely don't think that there's any Xbox players that would be against a sequel for Rise. That'd be amazing. It's good to hear that they are doing a Mad Max. That's actually something that I started playing. I've basically just scratched the surface. So much has come out, but that is a game that I'm going to be streaming if you guys want to watch me on Twitch and see my ugly head, get really excited and really upset about gaming. You can find me at Twitch up the top there, just next to the Xbox Infinite banner. But we'll move forward to BioShock. A BioShock movie's been announced. This is crazy time for gamers and entertainment in general, because gaming IPs are being treated with a bit more respect and being produced well. I mean, there was a time when if you heard about a gaming IP being made into a series or a movie, you'd pretty much write it off before it was even released, because you knew it was going to be terrible. That seems to be less and less of an issue these days, which is really exciting. I mean, we've obviously got The Witcher. That show's amazing. Some people are a bit iffy about the first season, but if you watch it twice, with that series, you've got to watch the first series twice, because you don't know what's going on until the end of the series, and then when you watch it back, you can have a lot of aha moments. Second series has been amazing. If you haven't watched it, do that. What have we got? Borderlands coming, Halo, which looks amazing. We talked about it on last week's show, I believe. Uncharted, not all of them are going to be good. The Last of Us, Cuphead, I watched last night. That was, well, if you're into that sort of thing, Rubber Hose, I think, is the type of animation Umbra was saying before we started the show. Look, it's not my thing, but look, there will be people that will love that kind of thing. It's not terrible. I didn't mind it at all, but it's just not something that I would get excited for. This is awesome. This is another reason we talked about this on last week's show, is I'd love to see it. And look, I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see Microsoft acquire WB in its entirety. Me and Pete had another chat about this. He doesn't think it's going to happen. But I'm excited, man. Like, a Bioshock movie, a Halo movie, we're getting an Uncharted movie, a Last of Us movie. Last of Us movie, or is it movie or series? It's a movie.
No, I think it's a series on HBO.
Series.
Last of Us. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
Last of Us series.
And also
will be
also
amazing.
Halo got a season 2, by the way.
Yeah, already signed up. Yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about that last week's show. Look, man, that thing looked. A lot of people had misgivings, but come on, look at our history with gaming IPs and series or movies, and it hasn't been great. And what looks like we're getting now is quality. Jedi, what did you think of the announcement of a Bioshock movie?
And look, Bioshock script when it first came out was planned to be a movie, and it was going to be done by the Pirates of the Caribbean director Gore Verbinski. I apologize if I pronounce that incorrectly.
If you're watching the show, Gord, we apologize.
It was meant to be an R-rated movie, and there wasn't a lot of R-rated movies that were getting greenlit at the time. But the story, the city of Rapture just lends itself to the silver screen, and I think it would have been absolutely amazing. So it's been on the back burner for 14 years now, something like that. I'm glad it's got a revival. They're making Bioshock 4 at the moment. I know Ken Levine isn't involved in the project anymore. He's moved over to form his own studio. I can't remember the name of the studio that's making the Bioshock 4 game. I think it's Cloud something. I don't know if our chat wants to help me out. I can't wait. I can't wait to go to Rapture. Bioshock was an amazing game. I loved it. And the twist at the end, magic. It's about as good as storytelling gets in gaming. The little sisters and the big daddies, and look, choices play a big part in the Bioshock game, so I'm interested to see what direction they go. I'm interested to see if they go the gore horror aspect, or if they go the noir detective story. But I think it'll be good, and I'm really looking forward to it. And they also released Cuphead yesterday on Netflix. It's 12 episodes. I think it's about 15 minutes per episode. It looks like one of those really old-fashioned cartoons.
Yeah,
a lot of
Rubber Hose. Yeah, we're just talking about that. The how it was. It's not bad. It's not terrible. If you're into that sort of thing, then it's great.
Thank you, Kelly. Cloud Chamber Games.
Yeah. If you're into that sort of thing, it's not bad. But look. Oh, I'm not into that kind of animation. I think Panda was saying at the start of the show it wasn't really her thing either. But look, if you're into that sort of...
I'm just impressed if you remember the rubber hose part I mentioned to you like that, Risk.
It's the hose he remembers.
How can you forget rubber hose? How can you forget the rubber hose? Look, Panda, are you excited to see any of these movies come to fruition?
Any time that we can see an IP go outside of just a game is exciting, and it's nice to have other people experience it in a way that they can't experience it if gaming isn't for them. I think, like, if it's done right, great job, because, like, you look at The Witcher, you look at Arcane, those are two great examples of IPs that might have started off somewhere else and also turned into a game, but, like, if it's done well, like, I'm a big advocate for, like, TV shows, because it gives you the time to really flesh out the story. It doesn't have to be a long series, like 8 episodes. But yeah, I love to watch that. Like, if I don't have time to play a video game and sit down and do that, and I'm doing something else, I'll put something in the background. Any excuse for me to kind of still kind of engage with content that I love, or lore that I love, or stories that I love, because I love gaming, whether I'm playing video games, where I'm reading comics about video games, whether I'm just reading lore about it. Like, I would love to watch a TV show or a movie, because I always watch them all. Like, I watched the Assassin's Creed movie, I watched the Tomb Raider movie, I watched all the Tomb Raider movies, but I preferred the reboot. But yeah, I think any time that I get to kind of encourage other people to expand their horizons, because I was talking to someone about The Witcher, and they were like, I've never played the game, should I watch it? And I was like, yes, watch it. They aren't a big gamer, they now want to go and play The Witcher as a result.
Gotta watch the Borderlands movie just for Alicia Vikander.
There you
She
go.
is
Borderlands
gorgeous.
movie?
No, the Tomb Raider movie. The
Tomb
reboot.
Raider movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alicia Vikander. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Silent Cypher, are you excited for any of the particular movies that are coming out?
Yeah, you know, I'm really excited that things have started to change for movie adaptations from games and stuff. You know, it's like back in the day we had those really awful things like the Max Payne movie that had Mark Wahlberg, and now
Or the Mario movie?
we've got and now we've got Uncharted with Mark Wahlberg. Okay, so in that case, I guess maybe things haven't changed.
Do you remember the
Maybe
Mario
it's just Mark
Brothers
Wahlberg.
movie?
Yeah.
Remember the Mario Brothers movie?
Oh, it's terrible.
Oh,
It's
I
terrible.
remember with
It
Bob
was
Hoskins.
rubbish.
Yeah.
It was so bad
Yeah.
it was good. You know when you have a movie that's so
I've watched
bad
it
it's good?
so many times.
So
It was
good.
horrendous, but it was good.
In defense of the Max Payne movie, it did have Olga Kurylenko in it, so it couldn't.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. No, in all seriousness, no. I'm very happy that we're starting to see kind of a transition on that, right? Like the new Tomb Raider movie felt really nice. It was nice to get away from like the Angelina Jolie ones, which just felt so flat, you
I
know?
feel like a caricature of the.
I've never heard
Yeah,
anyone
exactly.
describe
They
it.
had no soul. I agree.
I've never heard anyone
no.
describe an Angelina
Hold on,
Jolie
hold on.
movie as
Yeah,
flat. Okay. Carry on.
I knew where you were going with that, and I just wanted to say the acting, not the persona. But no, I'm super excited about it. Honestly, like BioShock was a really really fun game. Those games held up really well. I'm excited that stuff like The Witcher and BioShock and Halo and stuff like that are actually starting to see kind of, you know, better reverence, better homage to, you know, those series and stuff. Because it does feel like in the past we've kind of gotten shafted as gamers when it came to, you know, movie iterations for games. So yeah, I'm excited. I say throw some at us until we get to the point where we start getting, you know, some of those really bad duds again. I'd say just go with it, right?
I think with TV shows and movies for games, they've already got a market, so you know that we're going to go watch it as gamers. We're going to do it because we loved it so much.
Mhm.
Like you look at Sonic, and the backlash Sonic got because of the character. Like it didn't look like Sonic at all. And I think they really need to make sure that for already having a fan base who will go and pay money to watch this, that they still make sure that they're living, at least
Staying
keeping
true.
the integrity of the IP.
Yes. Yeah, for
Staying
sure.
true to it. Yeah, they really need to do that. And I'm glad that they delayed Sonic's release and worked on Sonic's character, because if they'd
Yeah.
released it as it was, I don't think
Oh.
Sonic would have got a sequel.
Look,
Sonic was terrifying. Oh my
I don't
God,
think it's
the
too-
first Sonic.
It's not too difficult to stay true to an IP though. Like you've
Apparently
already
it is in Hollywood.
You've usually already got you've got your story, you've got your characters, there's already something there for you to want to make a movie about it. Welcome back, Pete. There's already something there for you to want to make a movie about it. So I think staying true, that's the mistake that a lot of these Hollywood movies have made, is they've gone away from I mean, look at Resident Evil. That just got absolutely ridiculous.
Or look at
I watched it
or
because I
look
love
at-
Mila Jovovich. That's the only reason why I watched it.
or
Oh,
look at
she was
Doom-
great, The Fifth
Doom
Element.
way back, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
even look back at Doom, where it's like, okay, all you had to do was be like, okay, we're on Mars, and they've opened up a portal to hell, and so now we have a bunch of hell monsters. And instead, they opted to go a different route with it. And you're like, all right. Like you didn't need to. You could just stay with the storyline, the plot line. You could have stayed exactly with it, and instead they Hollywood-ized that movie.
I think
I
it was.
agree with it, Steph, in the chat, that the Assassin's Creed movie needs to be done again. It was close, Steph, but it just wasn't there. And Assassin's Creed, great franchise.
Oh, look, it is a great franchise, but that story as well has got a little bit convoluted within the game itself. Some of these games really aren't
Contradict itself,
Assassin's Creed. Like, it's, yeah. I mean, I love the games. I love the way that they've changed the game style. I personally like that, but the story's gone a little bit all over the place. I think sometimes they don't stay true to the lore because they don't have trust in not in the story, but in gamers. we were thought of as immature and maybe too young, and they wanted to maturize the story, and they didn't have trust in that IP in that way. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but I think that's changing. So I think that we will see, and obviously that fan base is growing as we get older as gamers. The average age of a gamer is 35 now. Then you've got everything underneath that that are gaming, and more obviously there's a lot more women in gaming, which is fantastic. And so that base is just growing. So there's many more reasons for studios to stay true to an IP. Umbra, is there a particular movie that you're looking forward to aside from Halo or series that's got you excited?
As far as game related, you're saying?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was about to list off some stuff. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. I'm looking forward to checking out Cuphead in a few. I'm going to check that out for sure. The BioShock movie, absolutely. I think there needs to be a bigger push for gaming coming into movies and TV shows as well. I think the market is right for it right now with the streaming that we have out here. So I'm looking forward to those two specifically. I can't think of anything else much that I'm really interested in. Honestly, outside of Halo. I have literally zero interest in that. I don't know why they cast the people they cast. Tom Holland, I love him, but no, he's not Nathan Drake. Every time I see him, I'm like, this is a miscast. He looks super young. I mean, he is super young, but he looks like a kid. Like, he looks out of place playing Nathan Drake. And of course, Marky Mark playing, playing as Sully is just also, it's like, nah. I can almost hear his Boston accent right now talking. Oh, hey, we're gonna find a treasure.
That's the problem with these Hollywood remakes. They're trying to go for the casuals instead of getting the good word of mouth from gamers that love these franchises. Who would you have cast, Umbra?
As far as Nathan Drake?
Yeah.
What's it? What, Nathan Fillion, for sure. I mean, I think the name kind of sells itself, right? Nathan Fillion, as far as he goes, and somebody mentioned it before, and at first I didn't think of it, but now I do. After I thought about it, and they mentioned it. What's his name? J.K. Simmons as Sully. Give him the old wig and the mustache, let him grow his mustache out.
I like that.
J.K. Simmons, by the way, plays J. Jonah Jameson, if you all are not aware of who that is.
And Nathan,
I think he would have just...
Nathan Fillion actually did some live action fan films, didn't he? For Uncharted.
Sure did.
Which everyone loved. So I mean,
and he was in the movie.
Yeah,
he was in the movie.
That's a misstep. How does Hollywood not see these things as, hey, this has already worked for this film? Why don't we just go with what works instead of?
Yeah, they've done something weird to Borderlands as well, where they've cast Gina Gershon, who's a great actress. Don't get me wrong, as Mad Moxie, but the age, they've cast Kate Blanchett as Lilith, Kevin Hart as Roland. I mean, Roland's a big tanky guy. Kevin Hart's like 5'2" on his best day. They just don't translate to the characters of the games, and I don't like how Hollywood does that. And it worries me when they make these games into movies.
They do things like that with books as well. I mean, look at Jack Reacher, and you see Tom Cruise. The dude's supposed to be 6'5", not 4 foot nothing.
Have you watched the new Jack Reacher show?
It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh my god, I've watched it. It's
so good.
Yeah.
I heard it was good. I gotta take it.
I love it.
Did you guys watch Jack Reacher 2?
Yeah.
So forget about the moves with Tom Cruise. Cypher, just watch the show on Amazon. It's great, mate.
Well, yes, but the thing I was going to say is go back to Jack Reacher 2 and watch that movie and watch how they try to make Tom Cruise look as tall as Kobe Smulders. Because you keep finding it. They constantly keep making him bigger than he is by like having him step on a milk crate or something.
The old Western movie.
Because like in one scene, he'll be like 1.5 feet shorter than her, but then all of a sudden he's the exact same height. It's awesome.
I think they've been doing that with Tom Cruise movies since he was in them.
So they would
100%. Same thing in Top Gun.
When they filmed Western movies, they would have the door frame shorter, so the cowboys who wear short looks taller against the door frames. So yeah, they've been doing it forever.
So Delly's written down there in the chat. You can just jump in, Delly. You want to see Bradley Cooper and George Clooney as Nate and Sully? That's an interesting.
Oh
choice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Sully to me has always been that dirty old man with like charm and charisma. So I don't know of a person as old in that age range that could carry a movie with such charm as George Clooney. Plus, like, everybody loves Clooney. I would have originally chose what's it called? De Niro, but I think De Niro's too old to be believing running around and keeping up with Nate. So
Yeah, right. I could see Bradley Cooper. Look, I don't think Brad Cooper's done a movie that I don't like. He's if you keep his shirt on, that'd be great. But
yeah,
after his gruffness in A Star Is Born, he could have definitely done it.
oh yeah.
It's either Bradley Cooper or the main character from Suits. I can't remember his name.
We've got to move on forward to the next topic that we've got this week, and I'll shuffle them around. Nacon. So if you guys don't know who Nacon is, they make controllers and peripherals. They bought the Rig headsets. I use Rig. They're a fantastic headset, and they make all peripherals around gaming. What I didn't know until Nacon this week acquired Daedalic for 53 million euros. I mean, it's a tiny acquisition in the scheme of what we've been seeing lately with Microsoft and PlayStation. Is that they have 16 studios, and they've bought 16 in the last 4 years. Now, if you don't know, Daedalic is the developer that's producing Gollum Lord of the Rings. They were already co-publishing this game, and then I think with this acquisition, we'll likely see a much better, more polished game, as they are only a AA developer thus far. So I'm pretty excited to see what comes out with Gollum. I wasn't super excited about the Gollum rights, but apparently if this in the deal is scope, if this goes well for them to do another Lord of the Rings IP, and I'm always keen for a Lord of the Rings IP. Umbra,
Very risk.
Yeah, man. Were you excited for this? Did this hit your radar?
Oh, absolutely. Very excited. I love Lord of the Rings. It's the entire series. So, I mean,
I'm from Middle Earth. Like that.
She's a hobbit. Yeah, I'm absolutely excited for it. I think it's going to be really good, actually, too. It looks top tier. So I think it's going to be really, really great. Interested in seeing, I know it's like a prequel to the events, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the entire event. So I'm actually really interested in seeing where they go with that. So I'll chime back in a second, but absolutely excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jedi, are you stoked about this? I mean, I'd love to see more Lord of the Rings IP. A Gollum game doesn't really excite me, but I mean, you know, you can do things with a Gollum game.
Yeah, look, the Gollum game isn't really my cup of tea, but in saying that, it's meant to be a stealth game, and there's just not enough of them out there, so I am looking forward to it. And it's in the Lord of the Rings universe, so it depends on what they do with the characters that get to interact with Gollum, like him going into, you know, the into Mordor and getting tortured. That would be cool, you know, to see that. So it depends on where they take it. In terms of the acquisition, you know, it's neither here nor there for me.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the acquisition, for me, that's the really exciting thing, because that pumps more money into this game, and then we might see something maybe even based off the new Prime TV show. That's another one that's being done. That's early in the first stage, I believe. So if we can get a first stage Lord of the Rings game, that's a whole bunch of new characters we get to dive into. Panda, are you super excited for this Gollum coming and the acquisition itself?
Okay. Being from Middle Earth, New Zealand, and growing up with all the Hobbit movies, and then like reading the books and having my own idea of what Gollum looks like.
And do you have hairy feet? You have the hairy feet as well? No?
Yeah, I get them waxed daily. Okay. It's hard to look at the Gollum game and look at Gollum. I know the art style that they were going for, but it just doesn't pull me in. Like, I love Lord of the Rings. Like, absolutely love Lord of the Rings, but I'm a pass on this game, just being honest. However, any opportunity for a developer to be potentially looked after financially and have the opportunity to grow and not freak out about the next paycheck and looking at I guess the size of the game or scope of the game and going, oh, we might have to pull things back, because you look at Psychonauts 2 and they Microsoft money came in and they got to add the boss fights back in and so on and so forth. So I think it's great that the acquisition has happened, and I think it's cool that it was by this company, because they're known for like their controllers and so on and so forth. But clearly, like I've been saying, it's obviously 16 studios. That is monopoly antitrust territory. The fanboys really need to get on that on Twitter. No, no, I think it's great. But I will pass on the Gollum game in this instance, unless I see the reviews, and the reviews are telling me that this is something I should really play.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys aren't like excited for the stealth aspects and things like that?
I am. That's what I do like about it, Umbra. I do like the fact that it's a stealth game. The last look we got of the game, it didn't look great. They really need to work on those textures, especially if a lot of it's going to be underground. I don't think the rocks in particular were up to scratch. They looked flat. So I am worried about that. But the stealth aspect, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm not sure what game it was where you played as a troll or something like that. And,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was a really good stealth
Goblin
game.
one?
So, yes.
Sticks, right? Shadow something. Sticks.
Yes,
something
that's
like
it.
that.
Yeah, sticks. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm thinking they're going for a game along those lines. So, yeah, look, I could see that being quite fun, because I really enjoyed that game.
Sticks was alright, actually. I really like Sticks. So I mean, if it is anything like Sticks, that would be awesome. But I mean, like I said, I'm really excited that they're going to have that money to pump into, like you said, Pete rocks or environments. Just polishing that game before it comes out. Silent Cypher. Are you excited to see the new Gollum game and/or new IPs come from it, if it's any good?
So I was mistaken, because I actually thought that these were the same guys that did Shadow Tactics Blade of the Shogun a few years back, but it looks like they were actually just the publisher on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me really excited, because that game had a lot of really good stealth tactics and stuff. That's a fun game. But being that's not the case, I don't know. Honestly, like I'll be interested to see how they do the stealth tactics and all that type of stuff. But I've never been a big Lord of the Rings fan. Granted, like the Shadows games were really good, but I don't know. I don't know if this one's really going to catch me personally.
Yeah. Deli, as a developer, you said you started in small indie studios. Would this get you pumped if you're working in a studio like Daedalic, and you were acquired and you were working on a game like Gollum, AA, and all of a sudden you had that massive cash injection? Would this as a developer working inside the studio already, would this pump you up?
Like, I mean, to think about like having new levels, like the concept art, all the stuff that you thought you couldn't do, like when you have that much cash flow in, like however it may be, right? If it's used properly, then I mean, you could make levels bigger, you can revamp your engine, you could, I don't know, hire people, you could go bigger, like, I don't know, maybe a bigger name. You can even get to the point where you even get, Lord of the Rings, like movie directors and stuff that have worked on the movies and stuff to come in and help out. Like, there's plenty of things that you could do to make it as, faithful as possible.
Have you ever been acquired whilst working for a studio?
Unfortunately not. So I can't speak on how things are in that sense.
But imagining that you were, would say you got acquired by Microsoft tomorrow? You already work for Microsoft. Say you're working for Ubisoft and they got acquired by Microsoft. Would that get you hyped, or knowing how Microsoft deals with their studios these days?
Yeah, I think I'd be pretty excited. I think that joining a family would be wonderful. Again, us game developers love talking about our stuff and love showing things off. So being able to, I don't know, be down the street, hypothetically, down the street from the guys at, I don't know, IdTech would be great. Like being able to come over and be like, hey guys, can we, or being on a Zoom call and be like, hey, what did you guys do here that helped out with this level? Because we're kind of making the same thing with, lots of corridors and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, here's some cheat codes and shortcuts. I'm like, wow, we didn't think of that. Or being able to actually get help from these developers themselves. Be like, oh, like, hey, we can help you out. I think that's wonderful. It's always, what's it called? I'm always happy to have more people help on a project, and I'm always happy to have more time, because at the end of the day, game developers will ask for two things: more RAM and more time. And that's all we ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they're given the time, we see absolutely amazing releases like Halo and other games. I'm going to ask the question that Panda has posed to the chat and the panel. You can ask it here if you want, Panda.
I saw someone on Twitter ask this: do you guys think that Xbox actually needs an answer to Horizon Forbidden West? Because currently there is not really a game like that on Xbox's side. This was asked by an Xbox guy on Twitter, and so I thought, yeah, what are your guys' thoughts? Deli?
I mean, does it matter? I don't know. I'm against the idea that like studios and stuff should make responses to other studios. Like, obviously I'm biased because game developer, but obviously I want to make games that we want. But at the day, I mean, I don't really see Xbox as a platform where it's like, oh well, Xbox is just multiplayer shooters and PlayStation is the home of the RPG. Like, I don't see it like that. To me, I play where I like the game. I play where the games interest me. So if Hellblade is interesting, then I go pick it up on Xbox. If Horizon's interesting, I go pick it up on my PlayStation. I know nowadays like that, but would it be nice to have like a quote unquote answer to? I mean, we have Fable and stuff coming out here shortly, and Dragon Age seems to be in a not that Dragon Age is an exclusive,
looks like
but
a pretty good answer to me.
But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of games that are occupying the same space. So yeah, I don't really think that a Horizon is what's it called, such a gang busting game. Like, I don't know, like Halo did a lot of damage to PlayStation in the early years.
Yeah. Well, do you guys think this is kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to the fact that now people are going, we've got nothing to play at the moment? Then Jedi or Pete?
Yeah, look, definitely. Unfortunately, we got a little bit excited at the end of last year when we got, Forza, The Ascent, Halo, and the first half of this year honestly doesn't look like there's much there. Stalker 2 being pushed back really hurt Microsoft, unfortunately, and really when you look at this year, I mean, I know Starfield is going to be a killer app. I mean, it's going to be amazing, but you got Starfield and you got Redfall and you don't have much else. So, and, for the first half of this year, there isn't much to play. And, when PlayStation's got a great title like Horizon Forbidden West, it's only normal to be a little bit jealous of that.
Yeah, look, personally, I'm not jealous because I've got a PlayStation 5. If I want to play it, I will play it. It's C-Steph said Xbox doesn't need a game like Horizon Forbidden West, but they do need more single-player RPGs, which they are producing and releasing in a few years. And absolutely, look, they're on the way. Like you said before, Pete, Hellblade 2 is an answer. I don't think it was developed as an answer to anything. I think they're developing that game because that's the game that they wanted to develop. But do I think that we need them? I would love to see them. You've got Indiana Jones coming. We've got so much coming. And I think Destin Legary did a video yesterday or today asking Microsoft for some information on when these games are coming. And I would like to see that. I would like to see, hey, when are we going to see Indiana Jones? When are we going to see Fable? If it's 2025, cool. Just tell us it's 2025. Tell us what you've
I
got
don't know
coming.
about that. Showing games too early is not smart.
I'm not asking them to show it. I'm asking them for information. And I agree with Destin. There just needs to be some information on when things are coming. And with the light half of the first year, look, man, that's going to happen with publishing companies. We've got third-party games coming out. There's first-party games coming out at the end of the year from Microsoft. PlayStation seems to be dropping their first-party games mostly at the start of the year. They did in 2021. They had a light back end of the year. I don't think it's an issue. You can't ask publishers to just constantly pump out games.
Now, but
I'm not asking them to see it. I'm not asking to see it. I want to see the information.
I want to see more of Plague's Tale. I do want to see more of Hellblade, games that are coming within the next, 6 months, to a year.
But we don't know when they're coming. That's Forza we do. But we don't know when these games are coming, and that's what Destin was saying. We just as a community, State of Decay 3. Chris Hill Senior says in the chat, like when these games have been shown. That's the thing, Pete. These games have already been shown. Yeah, like when are they coming?
Wow.
Give us some information. Look, and
I spoke on it on Twitter because people asked about that too, and I think I had that space that I said reactionary or reasonable, and we had a really big discussion about that. And a lot of Xbox fanboys were quick to try to kind of jump into the whole, we got to share Activision. What is Xbox doing for us lately thing? Now to say that to bring it back. I think because of the whole Horizon thing and people seeing that and how good it looks, some Xbox fanboys are kind of jumping the gun. But at the same time, I think also Microsoft could benefit by having a bit of a Nintendo Direct kind of thing in between their E3 and whatever other events they're going to have due to the Activision and Blizzard acquisition next year for the BlizzCon and things of that nature. But yeah, I think having a little Nintendo Direct before the summer hits with E3 and things like that would definitely benefit them. I mean, they're going to have so many titles. They have like 50 plus titles in development. Absolutely, they have more than enough to show something. And I know that Phil is a little hesitant to do it. If you all don't remember, he was very hesitant after the whole Platinum situation with Scalebound, and he didn't want to start showing off games too early. So I know they're hesitant because of that.
Bethesda's lead on that, isn't he?
Exactly. And Bethesda, as we know, are infamous for showing their game maybe 5 or 6 months out before it's released. So he's changed his mindset on that, and I think maybe they might have to adjust a bit just because they haven't delivered anything lately in first party. Lately, outside of obviously the Halos and Forza, don't get me wrong, we have had that. I don't want to diminish that, but I think it feels a little bit like what have you done for me lately from some Xbox gamers because they're seeing all of this coming for the first quarter for Sony. So I think it's just them looking ahead and being disappointed as to lack of what we know is coming.
They're in the same boat that PlayStation gamers were in end of last year when there was like nothing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
What have you done for me lately?
Yeah, but it's
we are getting a little bit spoiled if we are asking that question. 2.5 months after Halo was released, 3 months after Forza was released. Games take a long time to develop, and we know these games are coming. But look, I mean, do you think E3 is too far away for Microsoft to show something? Don't forget they've got QuakeCon now. They've got the Tokyo Game Show that they always go to. They've got the Game Awards that they always go to. So events are coming, but they are generally based at the end of the year. Do you think Microsoft do need to have an event earlier rather than later?
Well, E3's June, July, I think. So that's kind of mid-year anyway. So I don't think we need to see gameplay. Like I said, we've already seen the gameplay. I want to know roughly what we're looking at. When are these games coming? Redfall. When is that coming? Fable, when is that coming? Perfect Dark, when is that coming? We've seen trailers, and we know they're being made. So I just want to see more information as a consumer. And I liked what Microsoft did in the back half of 2020 and all through 2021, how they were communicating with us and letting us know what's coming, when it's, all these things that get you hyped for what's coming. And I want to see that. I want to see more of that. Boba Fett in the chat said he likes to have a broad roadmap. I like to have the roadmap. Don't show me gameplay. Just, it's coming. It's nailed down. These are first-party studios. You can't have a situation like you had with Scalebound. These are first-party studios. If it takes longer, it takes longer.
I would have thought they
Believe
would have
around.
showed more of Redfall already, seeing that game is slated for release in summer. That we're really not that far off. I don't think they can wait for E3 for that.
No.
I think that.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to release in the summer? Actually, still, I'm not sure. So
I
sure.
don't think
I don't
so.
think so
I
either,
think
no.
it's definitely going to get pushed back. Otherwise, we would have seen it by now.
That's to the fall for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Deli, how do
It's
you
going to be something in March or April from Microsoft. I feel like there's something coming soon.
feel, Deli, about having a broad roadmap for games that you're working on? Does that put pressure on you as a developer?
Oh yeah, 100,000%. I don't want to be like that guy that's like, oh, we don't want transparency. It's like, obviously we want to talk and show our stuff, but I've always stood by the stance like you should never let devs PR, because if you let me PR, I'll tell you about stuff that I'm working on. I'll tell you about stuff that like I want in the game, and then you'll be like, so where's the multiplayer? So where's this? Where's that? And I'm like, oh, my bad, y'all. We cut that last minute. But yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool with the roadmap, with the idea that it's like targets. You know, that's like, it's transparent. Like, hey, this is the pace that we're working on. This is how far we've gotten. This is the general idea of what you guys should expect. I'm always happy with transparency in the regards that like, hey guys, this is a update. But again, a lot of the developers don't like to speak to the community because, I mean, not you guys in general, but like Twitter and the internet is kind of vicious. Like, it's never enough. So we just prefer to stay silent.
Yeah, it's just fanboy console wars again, in my opinion,
Yeah.
what's going on at the moment. Like, we should be happy. We're only a couple of months out from getting an update for Halo. We're only a couple of months out from when Halo released. Still got Forza. You've got the new, I think it's next month. I was speaking to Grey Monad in the chat there. It's next month that the DLC drops for Forza. There's plenty for us to play. We don't need games to fire back at other publishers. Silent Cypher, do you feel like this kind of gets a little bit lost in console wars, and there's no need to have a game releasing every month, is there? I mean, it's great if there is, but
Yeah, no, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I love you throwing a bunch of games at me. Like, throw a bunch of stuff at me. That's cool. But do I think we need an answer for it? No. I mean, do they need an answer for Hellblade? No, not necessarily. Like, they're different
They answering
ecosystems. There's a reason to bring you to Sony, a reason to bring you to Xbox. I don't know. It very much feels like it's just like, okay, it's kind of a slow time, and so people are fanboying and console warring kind of just for no reason. Because I mean, you can play the games, like you can get the console. Granted, they're hard to get right now, but you could play that game. It's not like anything's holding you back on that side. But I don't know.
I think
It
they
just
need an answer for it. I agree.
what's that?
I said I don't think they need an answer for it, so I agree.
No, I mean, and then like as far as Microsoft having some more stuff to it, or devs having transparency and stuff, I think one thing that we lost that I really miss is when we had the Inside Xbox stuff. You know, once a month cadence, and it doesn't have to be a lot of stuff. It could be just small snippets saying, this is what this team's working on. This is what's going on here. I like the idea of like a dev diary thing, kind of like what Forza does, or, you know,
And Ninja
stuff
Theory?
like what, yeah, or Ninja Theory with Hellblade, right? Is like, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be behind the scenes. It doesn't need to be footage. Just something to keep you in that constant pattern of keeping that mind in your, or that game in your mind, right?
Yeah, more deep dives. I mean, E3.
Oh, so you guys want like a
absolutely
rollout?
stacked. E3 was absolutely stacked with trailer after trailer, gameplay after gameplay. It was just amazing, but we didn't get to see a lot of those games, and I'd love to know more about what the developers are doing and how they came up with that idea, and it will bring you closer to the actual developers and therefore make you more excited for the game, I think.
invested. Yeah, I think Ninja Theory are really good at that. And what you were saying, Deli, with more of a rollout. Dev Diary is great, and Ninja Theory is great at Dev Diaries, keeping you updated on
Mhm.
what they're doing with combat mechanics, what they're doing with Unreal Engine 5. Like if you go, if you go to their YouTube
That
channel,
snippet of Project Mara, I think, was
Yeah.
it Project Mara? Looks amazing.
if you go through their videos, their dev diaries are amazing. It's great. It does get you hyped for the game, and you see the combat work, what they've done with Hellblade, and it's man, I'm stoked for the combat. The combat wasn't great in the first one, so yeah, Deli. I think that rollout, that dev diary type idea that Ninja Theory do so well is a good idea. That they
Yeah,
all
behind
developed.
a dev diary for me is like being able to see developers talk about a game and the excitement, and it kind of builds my own excitement because if a dev generally loves what they're doing and they're talking about it in a great light, I'm gonna be more excited and I'm gonna be more likely to be like, well, if they're enjoying it, like if they're telling me that this is amazing, I believe them because I can see exactly what they're doing step by step or stage by stage. So I think a lot of buy-in there. But like, no, I think around Xbox needing to come back and combat this Horizon Forbidden West, they're already doing it. We know what games are coming. There's no need to do it. I think the reason that people are just saying that is because we have that little gap where we don't have games currently, but there are games consistently going into Game Pass. So there's plenty to tide us over. I mean, we already know that they're looking at ways to kind of make games a bit more similar to Horizon Forbidden West when they had that job description a couple of years ago saying they were looking for people, and they mentioned Horizon Zero Dawn as an example in the job description on Xbox's side. But it's just people trying to find ways to stoke that fire that is the fanboy console war that it is on Twitter, and it's disheartening to see. Like, be happy with the games you've got. Be happy that you can be a gamer and afford to play a video game. You don't have to be consistently looking for the next big thing, because there's lots of other games around that don't get the love that they need. Go to a secondhand store and find a game secondhand and play that instead. Get it cheaper. Like, enjoy what's available now, because there's a lot out there, and those games will come when they're ready, because they need to come when they're ready. I'm sick of games coming out unfinished.
Broken. Exactly. I mean, I picked up what Umbra's playing now, Mafia, the definitive edition, for $10. There's bargain bins out there, you can find them, and then there's Game Pass. As if
I
you're
was
an
going to
Xbox
say,
gamer.
go look through Game Pass for the diamond in the rough.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Umbra, do you have anything to add before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, just to say on that, I mean, you all have touched on it really well. I think if you all have a more diverse, or if you open up your mind to more diversity in your genres that you play, you will never really run out of anything to play when you have Game Pass. It's just the truth of it. And I understand a lot of people feel that little FOMO because of what they see PlayStation having right now, but you have plenty to play on the Xbox side. Myself, I had to make a whole list for bangers, and I hate using the word, but bangers and backlogs, because my backlog is so ridiculous. And I just bought Elden Ring with my rewards points. If you all are not earning your rewards points, please do so. But yeah, you have so much to play right now. It's no use of really sitting back and like, oh, you don't have this or that. You have plenty. It just comes down to you diversifying.
Willing
Yeah.
to try a new thing. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Look, we're hitting the 3-hour mark, guys, and it's been an absolutely fantastic show, but we've got to wrap it up and move on. And I thank the guests for all their time. Deli, thank you for coming along. It's been absolutely fantastic to get your insights and your thoughts on from a developer's side and point of view. Tell us where we can find you and what you're up to. Anything else you'd like to say to the chat before we move on?
No, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate that. I'm always happy to talk shop and hang out. If you guys will let me talk about games, I will do it until the end of my life. So, yeah, I'm mostly on Twitter. That's probably where you guys will reach me the fastest, because it goes straight to my phone. So it'll just be twitter.com/agentdeli. And yeah, I just mostly watch movies, play games. I like to be a normal human being. I always prescribe to the idea that being a normal human is very important. So my Twitter is literally just like a stream of consciousness, stuff that I'm playing, stuff that I'm doing, art that I like. Yeah, that's about it. So if you guys interact with me on there, ask me as many questions as you want. I'm always happy to answer.
Fantastic. Again, thank you for coming on the show. You've made it an absolutely fire show. Red Dead Panda, again, thank you for coming on. We will be having Red Dead Panda back in and out. But you also do another podcast, and tell the people about that, where they can find you on Twitter, and what you're up to.
Okay. So yeah, I do a podcast with Elite Gaming Guru and also Ashtray Gaming, and we generally do that on Saturdays and Fridays. But we're doing it tomorrow because we've got Randall Thor joining us. So just need to make sure that timelines adjust. But yeah, usually it's Friday 9 p.m. British Standard Time and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then Saturday Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, and then 10 a.m. New Zealand time. So that's where we are usually, Friday, Saturday, and we do that weekly. I'm also on Twitter. You can find me Red Dead Panda Gaming. Red Dead Panda with a number 1 on the end of it. I have a YouTube channel, but I really need to sit down and do some content on that. So I haven't got anything up on that, so you won't really see me doing anything on that. I'm generally mainly doing podcasts. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and having me on a more regular basis, because I'll be in and out whenever you guys need me. But yeah, love it. What have I'll be playing the community gaming night tonight, and I don't know if we're playing Halo or Back 4 Blood tonight, but one of the other. So please join us. Yeah, it'll be great.
Absolutely, it's down in the chat there. The AU Community Game Night on every Friday, Saturday at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and you can contact Boba. Boba Fett runs it at BobaFett_gaming on Twitter, or on Xbox at all capitals Boba Fett Oz. Moving on to Silent Cypher. And you also are part of your own podcast, XBI. Tell us where we can find you, what you're up to, what you're playing.
Right, yeah. So you can find me every Wednesday on XBI Podcast with Mr. Joanna Dark, Crazy Louie Gaming, and Sour Blow Gaming. We do that one at 7 p.m. Eastern. And besides that, you can find me lurking around in other podcasts, videos, and YouTube videos throughout the week. I like hanging out and just kind of seeing what the conversation is on Twitter and Xbox Live at Silent Cypher. And yeah, no, seriously, thank you so much for having me on. It was a blast, and hopefully we can do it again. As far as what I'm playing, I know we touched on it earlier, but if anyone wants to play any Forza, I'm around.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as having you guys back, Deli, Cypher, Panda, you'll all be back. Absolutely. Now, moving on to the panel members, as always, Jedi Knight, thank you for coming every week. You put your effort in with the topics, and I really appreciate you helping me out. It was fantastic this week. Tell us where you're at, where we can find you, what you're up to.
So yeah, I'm on Xbox at JediKnightPete, and Twitter, JediKnightPete as well. Thank you everyone into the chat. You make the show. You guys support us every week, so thank you so much. Boba, Grey Monad, Doovie, it's Steph, Mr. Joanna Dark. There's too many to name. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much to Deli, Silent Cypher, and Panda. Yeah, you guys were absolutely amazing. Umbra, I love you, mate. You're just great. I want to say that there is about 5 days and 9 hours till Elden Ring drops, so yeah, I cannot wait. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one as well. But moving on to Umbra, man, thank you for coming. Fantastic conversation every week. Your takes are always on point. Tell us where we can find you, what you're up to, what's good.
You guys can find me on Twitter, of course, under Umbra Infinite, as you can see here on the screen. You also can find me on Xbox if you're of even-keeled nature and, mature enough, under Superhavoc. I would tell you the PlayStation, but it's no use. I'm never going to play with you on there. It's always for single-player games. Anyway, thank you all to the chat who always comes through and support us, my boys in the ES, of course. You know who you are. Sanctus, everybody. We even had Bushido come through in the chat and Inferno. So thank you all for coming through. Doovie, always holding us down. Big Bad Mo. And of course, Crazy Lou and everybody else too. And Mr. Joanna Dark, of course. Also, really appreciative of Red Dead Panda, of course, you coming through and holding us down again. You seem to be a regular for us, and we definitely appreciate you. Deli, it was very interesting, and actually meeting you and hearing you again. I actually heard you on a different podcast before this, but so it was actually very interesting to hear you again. Simon Cypher, I've come through and supported you guys more than a few times, so absolutely good to have you on here too, brother. And Risk and Jedi, love to you too, brother. And of course, it's always great to be here with you too. So I'm very appreciative of that. I'm going to keep playing this Mafia, get this out of the way on Classic, get that achievement out of the way, and try to get through Sifu, and hopefully don't get aged like Morgan Freeman trying to get through this club.
Yeah, well, look, myself, I just like to thank the chat, everyone that you guys that appeared on the show, panel members, and our guest, and the chat. Chat's been amazing. Guys that turn up every week and support the show. You guys are what makes this show what it is. Like, tell your friends about it, share it out on Twitter. Let's get some more people in here rocking. Chris Hill Senior's here every week. Snoozy, it's C Steph, Grum, you guys, the other guys we mentioned, Grey Monad, the moderators. It's Timmy. You guys are absolutely fantastic. Thank you for coming along, making the show what it is. We've had 160 people come through the chat today. That's huge for us. That is amazing. So hit that like button, share it out, let people know where they can find us. I will be streaming and setting up a stream schedule very soon on Twitch. I will transfer those videos over to YouTube so you can watch them if you're not keen on going to Twitch. But if you are, just head up the top there. You can see my name, my tag is Risk It for the Biscuit 1. You can find me there. Hit a follow, costs you nothing, and you'll see my crazy head bouncing around all over the place whilst I get smashed on Halo or Mad Max or whatever it is I'm playing that week. So once again, thank you everyone. And thanks again everyone.
For community game night tonight, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Community game night, Saturday, 8 p.m. It's 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So you can look that up and see when that's at. All right, fantastic. Thanks for coming to the show. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you, and I will see you all next week, same time, same place.